Some of the content of Patriots Unfiltered may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The world's original podcast.
Welcome to Patriots Unfiltered.
Why does DK Metcalf not want to be in Seattle anymore?
Not a desirable place, or am I?
What did he say?
He said
Like last
Massachusetts.
month.
Massachusetts.
She would
Yeah.
never date you, bro.
Yeah.
Forget it.
You're chasing after these people that already told you no.
I know. Well,
now
again,
we're back. Now
we're back in my high school.
We're back.
The relationship is controlled by the person who cares the least, always.
Oh, just bad dates, sending SOS signals to
Having
friends
to
like,
make
get
your
me out of
friends
this
call
date
you with fake
immediately.
emergencies.
Yeah, I forgot my wallet, so sugar mama. No more lumberjack flannels during your analysis segments. Do you work for the Patriots or Husqvarna?
I don't know what Husqvarna is.
Well, you've never mowed your lawn.
It's
so-
like a tool company, tractors and stuff.
That checks out.
In
Water.
2004, there was the short-arm infant epidemic, and that affected a lot of people.
Apparently.
You know, and of course Andy would pretend he's not paying attention, but he's looking out of the
Right.
side of his eye like, I wish that was me.
He gives me the vibes of a big dumbbell flies guy. Like, got the dumbbells on the
yeah.
incline bench, and he's going,
Anyway, I used to love making fun of Andy.
This is Patriots Unfiltered.
Presented by Toyota's official website for deals, buyatoyota.com.
All right, welcome to Patriots Unfiltered. It is Tuesday here at Gillette Stadium, and hey, let's call it free agent frenzy. I think that's unique.
It was a frenzy.
But a big day for the Patriots. Everything reported, so nothing, the ink is dry on none of these, but the Patriots reportedly signed quite a few players yesterday, and I, for one, am very pleased with the haul. I think every one of these players are potential starters for this team. I understand they didn't get the wide receiver, they didn't get the left tackle yet, but it's day two. You never know who's going to shake loose from another team. We got the draft. There's a long way to go. So I think this was a great start to the 2025 season. So it's Evan, it's Paul, it's me, it's Deuce, Matt in the booth. We're here talking about free agency, probably a little draft, whatever you want to talk about. It's all on the table. It's a big day here at Gillette Stadium.
It is a big day. Yesterday was a big day. It was fun. We were all down in the bunker watching the moves come in, and that was exciting. Seeing a little bit of a slow start off the bat, and then all of a sudden it kicked into gear.
Well, that's
but
because Twitter was down.
right. I know
It's
Twitter
true,
was
it
down.
for a while. Yeah.
I found myself going onto the Blue Sky app, which I've never done before. But luckily, Twitter came back, and I agree with what you said, though, Fred. I just think they had to rebuild their defense. Godchaux going to the Saints, the uncertainty around Christian Barmore. It just I didn't really feel like it going in, but it just felt like they needed to add a piece on the defensive line that they knew. And I don't want to call Milton Williams the centerpiece of what this defense is, but I think it's appealing to think about him and Barmore. If Barmore could get back to that level, that you have two guys on the inside really cooking with gas, and Carlton Davis, the other piece. Those two pieces are the big ones to me. I think the other guys are, somewhat stopgaps.
I like
Spillane.
Bob Spillane.
Spillane.
I think he's going to be good.
It's my favorite signing.
Yeah.
I just think you needed a guy like that. You didn't have that guy last year. Juwan Bentley went down. You're scraping the barrel with guys like Christian Ellis, special teamers. Now, we make fun of tackling machines around here a lot, but I do think that he's a guy that has played a lot of snaps, can run pretty well, and I just look at him as some insurance as an off-the-ball linebacker.
They need to build this roster back up at all levels.
Yep.
Top, middle, these are mostly middle guys. Maybe Milton Williams is, maybe a little bit higher up. Certainly he was one of the most prized free agents out there. But they need to build this roster up. And like I said, every one of these guys looks like he's going to be a starter. Obviously Josh Dobbs isn't going to be a starter. But most of the guys that they signed yesterday, or reportedly signed yesterday, are going to contribute right away to this team, and that's what they need.
Yeah, it gives you a baseline, and it's a place to start. I still think the draft is critically important.
Why don't you go down the list?
Yeah. Start on the defensive side of the ball. So you have Harold Landry was the first one to fall on Sunday night, reportedly. And then Robert Spillane with a 3-year deal. Carlton Davis with a 3-year deal. Milton Williams with a 4-year deal. And then Tonga with a 1-year deal. So you added Tonga and Williams as your defensive line. And I just look at – I love Davis. I just think Davis is a good complementary piece to Gonzalez. It feels like you have a legit outside corner now opposite him. Tough player. I think Detroit and Patriots played the most man last year of any two teams, so he's got that part of his game. But otherwise, I look at the rest of it like, all right, we reestablished a baseline. We got away from, I'm looking back at the defense, 30th in DVOA last year, 30th in takeaways, 26th on third down, 22nd in points. It was a terrible defense last year. They've reset it to Mike Vrabel and Terrell Williams' liking, but I still think they need the draft pieces to put them over the top. You've got a solid bunch of pieces in place after free agency. Now it's time to improve the team through the draft.
And every one of these guys, most of them have some connection to either Vrabel or McDaniels. There's some knowledge of the player and how they're going to fit in.
Some certainty. I mean, I think that's what Elliot Wolf said. In Indy, they felt like they got some bad info on some guys. These are guys that they have experience with. Also, just to run down the offensive guys, Austin Hooper back on a one-year deal reportedly. Morgan Moses, which a move I know Paul would like to talk about as a right tackle, veteran guy. Josh Dobbs, quarterback backup, and Matt Collins with a 2-year deal. So that rounds out all the reported signings right now. But I really look at Moses on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, he was my favorite signing that they made. But in terms of the defense, and I know there has been some.
Why was he your favorite?
Because they didn't have any tackles.
Yeah.
I've been very adamant that they have not had an NFL player at that position for 2 years. They now have one.
Yeah.
He's old,
Yep.
and he's got a lot of wear and tear. But I really like that signing, and I think fingers crossed they get him through training camp, and then you start the season. At least you have an NFL player
Who's played the position.
played at a level. He's played at he's not just a scrub. He's played at a good level for a lot of years. I like that signing a lot. But the defense needed just as much attention as the offense. And I think people still are refusing to sort of wrap their minds around the fact that the defense was every bit as bad as the offense was last year. And we got an SPFW a little while ago asking the same thing. Why all the attention to the defense? The defense was okay. No, it wasn't okay. The defense was badly in need of an overhaul, and Vrabel decided, whether it was a plan to do it that way or that's the way the pieces fell,
Right.
that's what they addressed first. And I don't think there's a bad signing in the bunch.
Yep.
I really don't.
Do you think that any of these signings that they made affects how they look at the draft? So I'm looking at, they take the corner. Does that change anything if Travis Hunter is available at 4? Does it change anything on the defensive line for Mason Graham now that they?
That's one I might say yes. I mean, I think cornerback, I didn't see it as a huge need to begin with. I think that's a position where they could still take it in the mid rounds, but I would say it's a hard time, especially if Christian Barmore comes back, envisioning the value of Mason Graham, who's the same kind of player that both of those guys are. So if anything, Travis Hunter's special, so I wouldn't rule him out. But I would listen to Mason Graham kind of being ruled out.
But maybe you bring in this guy, from the Lions at corner.
Yeah.
And now, if you do take Travis Hunter, maybe the first thing you do in the spring is put him at wide receiver.
Yeah.
We know he's going to be a good corner. Let's put him at wide receiver, and if he does well there, start him at wide receiver because we've got two really, one elite corner and another really solid corner. Jonathan Jones might be hitting free agency, I hear.
Yeah.
So you've got the replacement for him, who's probably a step up.
Yeah.
And we can take our time with Travis Hunter at wide receiver and see how he does there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think this might affect a little bit how they look at.
I'm not sure. I'm
Yeah.
not sure it does.
Okay.
I get Mike's point on Mason Graham. I probably wouldn't push back too much on anything Mike said. I would still stick with if they're at 4 with no opportunity for Carter or Hunter, which I still believe they will not have an opportunity for those two. I think they have to stick with the board and go with the best player because I still think you need players. And even if Barmore is back in the mix, you can't rely on that. He was back in the mix last year and then had, recurring problems with the blood clot. So if Mason Graham is your highest, guy by far, I would still take that. Again, I don't necessarily, everything Mike said is right. I wouldn't push back if you feel the same way Ev, that Mike did about Mason
hope
Graham.
so.
Yeah. No, I mean, I wouldn't argue with either one of you.
Pound defensive tackles
yeah,
on
and
the
I wouldn't
field
argue with
together.
that.
I think that's the biggest thing is like they're both undersized. Milton Williams is also undersized. They both win with their quickness and their technique and all that kind of stuff. So if you're looking at overlapping skill sets, I mean, they're kind of the same dude. Like you're kind of projecting that Mason Graham is going to play a similar role and do similar things.
But I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it because I think that might allow you to maybe use Mason Graham on the way that Philly used Milton Williams on more of a part-time basis.
Yeah,
Well, you can't take that at 4 overall.
No, but I'm saying initially. I mean,
Yeah.
these guys are only under contract for a few years. I mean, it's like a 4-year deal. Maybe if he's an abnormal free agent, you get 4 years out of him.
Yeah.
Most of them don't see the end of their contracts. So if you hit with Mason, I think the more important thing, I guess what I'm trying to say is, not arguing with what you guys are saying, because you're saying things that make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think you just have to get a good player at 4.
Yeah.
And if the good player is overlapping with Milton Williams, then you got to take him.
Yeah.
If you think that, Will Campbell is more of an option there, then you have to take him. Or whoever, Ted McMillan, whatever you decide, Tyler Warren, you just have to make sure that you get a good player. And I wouldn't sacrifice a good player because I just signed Milton Williams.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I listen to that. I mean, I think this is the baseline of where you start. I still, to your point, Fred, I feel the pressure of edge rush, having some juice off the edge. I don't think that they have that. I think Harold Landry is a solid player who, is just going to give you solid reps, but I look at that as a baseline, solid NFLer. But if you're really going to be a good defense, you need to have somebody who can bring some heat off the edge. I still feel the pressure with left tackle and wide receiver too.
Sure.
And those are the hardest ones to thread the needle on. But I think that's what free agency is about, getting to a baseline place where, look, we don't have to have Mason Graham. We don't have to have any. I mean, again, a left tackle, that's still, I think, something to consider with Will Campbell. But the other positions, I think they have a good baseline, but it's just the foundation is set. That, to me, this is where the real work starts now, is finding the good young players.
This is the offseason I was hoping for last year. I thought that they needed to bring in some NFL players at a number of spots that were better than what they had. They chose instead to re-up a lot of guys that they had.
Right.
So, like you say, Carlton Davis is probably an upgrade on Jonathan Jones. I would probably agree.
Yeah.
Now, everybody knows the worries with Carlton Davis. His durability has been a factor throughout his career. But I think he's a better player than Jonathan Jones.
Yeah.
So I think you upgraded there. Spillane, I think he's a different kind of player than Bentley. Obviously, he's smaller, faster, and not that Bill Belichick traditional bigger
Yeah, but you still have Bentley.
run stuffer. But you still have Bentley, so I don't know if you want to use them both. I don't know if you want to use Spillane instead of Bentley.
You think you're Mickey Spillane?
I would hope they're
maybe
playing
Mickey
next to each
Spillane
other.
is the next veteran. I mean, Jawad Bentley's the next veteran to go, and
Yeah.
Mickey Spillane takes over.
And that's the thing, for those people who are freaking out that they didn't get the left tackle or what, there's still a long way to go. Cooper Kupp is now going to be a free agent. Before you had to trade with him. You don't know who's going to shake loose. When this whole process started, you didn't know Harold Landry was going to be available.
You kind of did.
I mean,
They gave him permission to seek a trade.
I know.
So you knew they were going to release him.
But at that time, before they did that, you go into this, you didn't know that the Titans were going to do that with Harold Landry. You just don't know who's going to become available, and guys do. So there's a long way to go before September. This roster will look a lot different even from today than it will once we start playing the games in September. So there's a lot they can pick up. That said, if you think they're going to solve everything in 2025 that needed to be done, that might be a little unrealistic. I'm talking about, top-end quality players. It probably won't all happen this year, but I think they made a step in the right direction yesterday.
Yeah,
reportedly.
I just feel like you guys mentioned it earlier, and Deuce rattled off the stats. I don't think people gave enough credence to just how bad the defense was last year. I mean, it was like the bane of my existence at times watching the film back every Monday of that defense.
I agree with you. People don't get how
the,
bad it
the
was.
interior, especially of the defensive line and the off-ball linebacker play against the run was at times just not NFL caliber, and you just had a lot of issues on that side of the ball last year. I mean, they couldn't fit the run. Like they just couldn't. They couldn't
You want
do
to know
it.
a microcosm of the season?
Yeah.
You had the lead at home with the other team 80 yards away, and Anthony Richardson drove the ball the length of the field and then proceeded to get the 2-point conversion to win the game as time expired.
Yeah, and the Colts aren't even sure he's their quarterback.
That was a microcosm of just how bad the Patriots defense was last year.
Yeah, it wasn't a good defense, and I think the one thing, look, they have holes to go still. They have a long way to go, but the one thing I feel optimistic about is someone, whether it's Vrabel, Ryan Cowden, Elliott Wolf, combination of the three, somebody's paying attention to where the real holes are on this football team. Like, they're not going out there and spending silly money on Dan Moore, who gave up the most sacks in the league last year for Pittsburgh and then now is making $100 million on a 4-year contract. And they're not going out there and paying Darius Slayton all this money to get him because they think he's an upgrade at wide receiver. They're paying attention to the spine of the team, right? The trenches, defensive line, linebacker, right tackle. You know, they're going out and they're adding guys that, I'm sorry, you're not going to draft them to your fantasy team, but this is real football, right? Like, this is where the game is won and lost, and this is what they're doing.
That's what the ball knowers say.
And I didn't want to, put my nose up.
No, it's true. It's true.
But this is where it is. And, you mentioned Robert Spillane, who I'm going to just sing the praises for here for a quick second. Robert Spillane was one of those guys that, nerds like me that on Monday nights for some reason found themselves watching Vegas Raiders defense for whatever God knows what, were always constantly saying, like, who's this Spillane guy, right? Because that guy just flies to the football. Like, he brings it every single play.
The draft a few years ago where there were a couple linebackers that were fast, that Nakobe Dean, I think, and the other guy. Yeah. Like, I like those kind of guys.
I love those guys.
Like I know he didn't win any Super Bowls for the Dolphins, but Zach
Thomas.
Zach Thomas. I love those guys. Those big tackle guys. You need those.
Well, I just like athletic guys that can make plays in space.
Right.
I don't care about how many tackles they make.
I understand you don't care about how many tackles you have, but you don't make 156 tackles by accident, right?
Saw London Fletcher.
You have a nose for the ball.
Yeah, he does. He has 5 interceptions over the last 2 seasons playing middle linebacker, which is
that I like.
Is an interesting number.
That's making plays in space.
This
that
guy,
I like.
And he'll run through you too. Like, you watch him pull guards, come up to the second level. He's running through mofos. Like, he's going right through you to the ball. He's a fiery dude, and I think a lot of what they're trying to do is get guys like that, get guys that with effort and finish and that want to be here and that play with joy and play with energy. And he's absolutely one of those. I would say Milton Williams
They're all three
is
of
one
them
of those.
I mean,
as
Carlton
well.
Davis too. He plays hard too.
Yeah.
I just I dove in on the film a little bit last night, trying not to get too attached to Milton Williams before it all went down, but going through some of his plays, there was one play that just stood out to me where he was standing up on the backside, and the play went around the corner the other end. He made the play 20 yards down the field, made the tackle. Everything Evan's saying right now about just the play temperament of these guys on defense, it rings true to me from what Vrabel has said they want their defense to be. And
it's
frankly,
be a heavy metal defense.
It's exciting to me because I've grown up watching Bill Belichick's defenses, great defenses, complex defenses, throwing curveballs at the opponents, but that's grown stale over recent years. And I think they lost the intelligence of Bill Belichick of implementing those game plans. And now we're looking at a defense that we're going after you. We're coming to get you. We're going to play aggressive. They're probably going to make some mistakes and get burned from time to time, but I think they're going to play with their hair on fire, and I think it's exciting. All three of those guys that
they fly to the ball. They fly to the ball.
And even Landry, who I don't think moves all that great, is still just a tough guy who's going to play hard, and he's going to get effort sacks and that kind of stuff. So I like the personality. One more point I'd say too, to just they're checking the boxes. I have my little nerdy depth chart that I do, and I had holder spaces where I'm like, they need a left defensive end. I just had blank spots, and yesterday as the moves are coming in, it's paint by number. Harold Landry's going right in that spot right there. Yep, Milton Williams is going right. All those guys easily fit. Carlton
they
Davis
have so
right
many
in that
spots.
side.
Right. Pretty much anyone they
Right,
but
sign
this is why I was so frustrated last
holes,
year,
though.
and I know I got a lot of pushback, but that's why I was frustrated. They just decided what they had was good enough, and they decided let's bring it all back. We won 4 games, let's bring them all back, and we'll draft a quarterback and think it's going to get better. Like, it wasn't. They needed to do something like this to get better.
Well,
now
that's
listen,
my
that doesn't
point.
always work,
and
it doesn't always work, but at least I can understand, as Mike said, and like Evan said, I can plug this guy in here, and I think I got better at that position. I can plug Carlton Davis there. I got better at that spot. Obviously, Milton Williams is going to be better than Daniel Aquale or Jeremiah Farms. No disrespect.
Right.
He's a better player.
Right.
So you got better at a lot of, probably 5 different spots on defense you got better at.
Now, that said, they did make a run at Godwin. From what I understand, they offered him a hell of a lot more money than what he settled on to stay in Tampa Bay. Good for him. It's always good to hear a player stay with his team, and takes less money and all that, because he really likes where he is, which is fine. But they did make a run at Godwin, and he just didn't want to leave Tampa Bay. So they know they need to get away. It's not like they're not trying. They will continue to try. We mentioned, Cooper Kupp is now a legit free agent. He's going to be released, so you don't have to trade for him. I'm not saying he's going to be WR1, but I'd like him on the team, in the locker room, and in that wide receiver room. Absolutely.
Yeah, it just feels like, we talk a lot about trenches, and then you talk a lot about culture and bringing some of those guys in.
You need that.
And then they did that on day one of free agency, and it's like, well, what about the wide receiver? And it's like, yeah, they still need the wide receiver, but isn't this what we just talked about for the last month is what they needed to do? And then they went out and did
This is what Belichick did when he first got here. He signed Anthony Pleasant. He signed Bobby Hamilton. He brought in Brian Cox. Guys who, were hungry, know how to play football, know how to behave, know how to practice. And, he built the team like that. You have to do that.
Yeah, it was a very 2001 like free agent class.
Yeah.
They did not have a big shiny object like Milton Williams in 2001, but the Spillanes and the Carlton Davises of the world, it was Mike Vrabel.
Yep.
Harold Landry, Mike Vrabel. It was,
Otis Smith.
You mentioned the guys up front. Otis Smith actually came in 2000, but yes, that was what I would say is Carlton Davis.
Right.
And Spillane, these are all guys that, Brian Cox.
Yep.
In 2001.
Yep.
Mike Compton is Morgan Moses, like a veteran offensive lineman who started in the league and established a level of competence in the league. It's not a roll of the dice on Trey Jacobs and Vidarian Lowe.
Yep.
It's a guy who was started in the league.
And beyond what they do on the field, Vrabel knows these are guys who will carry my water. They'll carry my message. Yeah. These are, the guys that will set the tone in the locker room, set the tone at practice. You have to have that.
Yeah. And just to go back to your question about the draft, and I was kicking this around with you guys a little bit yesterday. The more that I see what they're doing and then listen to what they say, the more that skill player at 4 overall stands out to me as a possibility, because when we were at the combine, when Vrabel was asked about that wide receiver 1, how he said
they're hard to get.
They're hard to get. Most of the time you have to draft it yourself. And I look at the way that they've moved, and we're now 2 free agencies in where Calvin Ridley says no, Brandon Ayuk says no, DK Metcalf says no, Chris Godwin says no. And until you get to the point where you can attract that level of talent at that particular position, you might have to draft your own guy. And maybe that guy, maybe it's Ted McMillan and he's not a true number 1 receiver, but then next offseason you get the number 1 receiver and now he's T. Higgins, right?
Yeah.
To Jamar Chase. And you have that sort of thing going for you. So Travis Hunter has been a wide receiver to me this whole time, so I put him up at the top. But Travis Hunter, Ted McMillan, Tyler Warren, a true guy that you feel like you can feed targets to, that can be a true high volume, run the offense through this player.
What about?
I just wonder if that's on the table.
What about Chenti?
Lord help me.
Not for me.
Not at 4. What if they trade back?
But based on what they did yesterday, I'd put him in the mix.
That's how I kind of felt
because
too.
I think that we're going to, as Mike said, play with our hair on fire on defense. We're going to be a high-pressure defense trying to make plays. We're going to try to run the ball. We're going to try to be, mistake-free
less
on
turnovers,
offense,
right?
And we're going to try to be, 18 Tennessee.
So
2019.
I just don't believe he thinks that, because that truly was his demise in Tennessee. Was trying to win games like that. saying we don't need A.J. Brown, we'll draft Treylon Burks because we're going to be a run-first football team. We're going to play great defense. Like I just feel like he's had to have learned from, and I mean Vrabel, like had to have learned from those experiences that you're not going to win like that.
Even Mac Hollins, kind of known as a blocking wide receiver.
I just Genty to me, I feel like is still, if you're already a good team that can add him in as a bonus piece, like the Eagles just did with Saquon Barkley, for example, like then that's a great pick for you. But unless they add a left tackle, a left guard,
Well, so let's just say that Cam Ward or Shador
Sanders
doesn't get picked before the Patriots. Does that increase the chance that a team may want to trade up to get one of those two guys in the Patriots, pick up a pick or two extra to be able to get Ashton Genty, but now you can also maybe get a tackle or, a wide receiver?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I would rather draft the receiver instead of Genty, but like in either way, that's a trade down scenario makes sense, right? I think everybody would take a trade down in the Patriots position, and maybe you can draft Tet McMillan at 9 instead of drafting Tet McMillan at 4, and then everybody feels a little bit better about it. But I just, until you can be the belle of the ball and find a way to get one of these diva wide receivers to take you up on your offer, like you're just going to be.
Did Metcalf, he went to Pittsburgh, was that because of Russell Wilson? Like, because he didn't want to be in cold weather and he wanted to be a contender.
So
and he went to neither.
There's a little bit of. They've pushed back on the whole warm weather thing.
Okay.
He said he didn't like this area, and that's what he says. I'm not telling you that he's not lying, because I think he probably is.
Yeah.
He came back
But
off.
his camp says that he did not like this area. He didn't want to come to this
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts specifically.
He said that.
Right.
Right.
I don't. Now he may have said I want a warm weather climate. I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
That was a report.
But that's what everyone is saying now, and they've pushed back on that over the weekend. His camp. But again, that's what his camp is paid to do. Make their client look better. But I don't think it had anything to do with Russell Wilson. He's not under contract.
Not yet.
Okay.
Matter of fact, they're talking about Aaron Rodgers, which I think would be unbelievable.
I
Mike
think
Tomlin and Aaron
some
Rodgers.
of the sells for Metcalf that are now coming out, and you always hear that side of the street, is that Pittsburgh has a great history with wide receivers. He feels like he's going to be well coached at that position and put in positions to succeed. And I think Mike Tomlin is still continues to be a draw, and them being a 9-10 win team is still better than a 4-win Patriots roster. And there's just a little bit more proven commodity there, I guess, with Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it is a playoff team.
Yeah,
I dismiss Pittsburgh
I'm kidding.
No, but I dismiss them every year.
Compared to us, they're contenders. Yeah.
But like compared to the rest of the league, they're contenders.
Yeah.
Like I dismiss them every year because I don't think they could possibly win big in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're
I think most
so
people do.
limited.
Most people do.
But they win 9 or 10 games every year. They won 10 last year.
No, but even their own fan base is getting frustrated with
they
that.
they want Tomlin out.
Yeah,
They
I
think
know.
they should be better with what they have.
I know.
So they have talent. In other words, their fans think they have more talent than they're winning.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing, the perpetual
But they don't.
6-7 seed. I mean, at this point, after back-to-back 4-win seasons, what I wouldn't give to be the 6 or
Well,
7
that's
seed.
my
But,
point.
you
Like
get to
if
that
you're
point, we're never
DK
getting out of the
Metcalf,
middle.
you're not necessarily in the weeds breaking down the depth charts of the teams. You're seeing 10 wins and 4 wins.
Yeah.
Like, what's my decision?
Yeah.
No.
You know?
Yeah. Some other NFL. Daniel Jones going to the Colts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of big
That's a good
names.
move for Indy, I think. There's a chance that he could be Sam Darnold and resurrect himself.
Justin Fields to the Jets.
Yep. Justin Fields. Speaking of Sam Darnold,
Seattle.
he went to Seattle. Geno Smith. Where did he go?
Vegas.
The Raiders.
He went to the Raiders. So a lot of quarterback movement. Obviously, Rodgers is still out there. What are the Vikings doing? They're going to go with JJ?
Sounds like, the quarterback movement terrifies me because I think everybody is running for the hills from this quarterback class right now, and no one wants to be stuck taking a quarterback in this draft, and they're going, every other direction besides
Going to give you
being
the silver
stuck.
lining in that. I 1,000% co-sign on what Evan just said, but the one silver lining is that none of the 3 teams ahead of them has signed one of those guys yet.
Right.
And I think that's good. Like, I think it would be bad if, say, the Giants end up with Aaron Rodgers, or Cleveland ends up signing, Kirk Cousins, whoever else is out there, that would be bad to me.
Yeah.
Does Geno preclude the Raiders, do you think, from trading up for
yeah.
Shador?
Well, it definitely sounded
no,
like
I
he was
don't.
getting an
They're
extension.
not drafting a quarterback
Why?
because there's not a good quarterback to draft. Evan just told you what they think.
But I don't think signing Geno Smith is the reason why.
Well,
they
they would rather have Geno
they're
Smith
getting
in the
to an
short term than
extension with
draft Cam Ward or Shador Sanders.
No, but maybe
yes.
have Geno Smith there, and so you don't have to
bridge
start Shador on day one.
Yeah, but if they liked that option, they would go with that option. I agree with Evan. I think that they're telling you that they don't believe in these quarterbacks.
They also were telling people over the weekend after the trade that they were going to pay Geno Smith $45 million a year on a new contract.
He's
extension.
another guy who wins
So-
10 games now. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
This the mid-level, and Geno's not going to be mid-level. He'll be paid more than
like
that.
if you
but
were the Bucks, would you draft Shador Sanders?
No.
No, it's this. They have the same guy.
Well, I have Baker.
I know that's the
Baker
same
Biggs.
guy. It's Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield.
No,
it's
he's better
it's,
than
it's
Geno
a veteran.
Smith.
It's a very similar situation, Fred. Is all I'm trying to tell you.
Give him
Paul
his
looks at
respect.
Evan. Paul Fred
Give
looks at me.
Baker his respect.
I
Should
want
we
to
do
go to
it? Should we
something
get
you
into
said
it?
earlier, like because you've been on this for years and years, and I always make fun of you about, guys will shake free, guys will come loose, blah 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 blah. Okay, so would you give the 4th overall pick to Philly for AJ Brown?
Nah.
Well, I would do it in a heartbeat.
I can
Who
see
are
it.
you getting in the fourth pick that's going to be better than AJ Brown?
Right now?
No,
No,
two
next
years,
year.
2 years when they're picking fourth again.
Well,
No,
I mean,
Paul makes a good point. I've said this a lot.
If he shakes free, if that's a
Right,
Fred guy who
right.
shakes free, now
Right.
Philly says that he's not shaking free.
I
but
mean,
I
people,
could
people always
everyone has
throw
a
in the
price.
money. Well, you,
$1 million
you also
man,
have to
everyone's
pay
got
him.
a price.
You also have to
AJ
pay him, and I
Brown
get
is
that. You don't have to pay the fourth
different
round
level.
guy.
I would take him.
The 4th pick as much
I
as you
would
would
take
AJ
him.
Brown.
No, for the
but
4th pick, I would take
You're
him.
not going to find somebody better
Would
than
you
AJ Brown.
But what do you
Would
think
you
makes...
like 4 for AJ Brown and 32? Like, is that allowed?
I don't know if it's allowed for me. I don't know if they'll allow it.
Yeah.
I'm not even
I mean,
sure
if
you're
I
going to
could
get
do
him
that,
for
it's
just
a slam
4.
dunk.
Didn't he go from Tennessee to Philly for a 1 and a 3?
Yep.
So now you're only going to get him for a 1, and you want them to give you a pick swap for it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean,
I'm
the
not sure
different-
they'll agree.
But the difference between 4 and 32 is a first-round pick.
Correct.
So like you're still
That's-
trading a
that's more-
first-round pick.
In fairness, alluding to that as a pick swap is very disingenuous on my part.
True. Yeah,
That's much more than a pick swap.
it's a big
32 to 1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I would do that. Wouldn't you do that?
I don't know. I just give me a top 50.
I would.
Give me something else.
I
in
would. I
there,
understand what
yeah.
Evan's saying. He wants to draft a young player who
Sure.
can be part
Yeah.
of the future. I would definitely sacrifice the 4th pick though for a proven commodity like that.
Well, that's my question. And I love AJ Brown, and he's like, if
And
him,
again,
I
it's
can
a
be
guy that
talked into
Vrabel
it.
knows. Don't forget.
But I also just wonder if Will Campbell is a decade-long left tackle, is that better for the long-term health of the franchise than pushing the issue this year with A.J. Brown when you're probably not quite ready and maybe making it to the 6th or 7th seed?
But
and
what
then,
kind of
you
a
know what I mean?
decade-long left tackle? Is he Matt Light?
Well, if he's just good, very good,
He's
a very
Matt
good,
Light.
solid,
Then I'd
left
rather
tackle.
have A.J. Brown.
But I mean,
If he's
but is that going
you
to
know,
peter out?
Jonathan Ogden, I'll take Jonathan.
Is A.J.
Ogden.
Brown going to start to go downhill in 2026
Well, no, but
when we
here's
feel
the
like
thing.
we're hitting
Here's the
our,
thing,
our
Mike.
stride?
If there's a time to pay that big priced wide receiver, it's probably now, so that in 3 years or 4 years, when you have to make a decision on Drake May, he's
seen it with
so
a guy.
much better. I don't need A.J. Brown. I'll go
Yeah.
and re-up that position when I have to
I
pay.
can facilitate.
Yeah.
I
I like to get
No,
everyone
I can
involved.
listen, and I think I made the point last show of like getting him somebody now to try to accelerate the process for sure. I'm just saying for sake of argument, are you just going to get to where the Steelers are with A.J. Brown, and then he's going to start to decline, and then you're going to be stuck? Whereas, if you had an option right now for saying, let's secure our line and know that that's going to be good for the foreseeable future, and we can now build around that for the next decade rather than the clock's ticking with A.J.
I
Brown.
don't like
See-
the idea of
see-
building around an offensive line for a decade.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not as worried about rebuilding that offensive line as some people are. I believe if you're smart about who you either sign or draft, and you have good coaching, we can get back to respectability on the offensive line. I think wide receiver's tougher. To get that one guy that is a game changer.
Well, that's why I just keep coming back to, like, no one's saving you from this problem at wide receiver. Like, you can't even get Chris Godwin to take $20 million more to come from Tampa to the Patriots. Like, no one's throwing you a life raft here. Like, and I don't think AJ Brown is just magically going to come available and they're going to trade for him or whatever the case may be. And
Perillo, Patriots to sign AJ Brown. That'll come out of the show.
At some point, you got to just draft your own guy. Like, you're just going to have to take a plunge with somebody at the top of the draft and not somebody at 38 like Jalen Polk or 50 like Tyquan Thornton. Like, somebody in the first round that's your guy, whether it's Tet or it's Matthew Golden or whoever. Like, you just have to go out and get that guy because, I mean, how many years are we going to do this? That we're DK Metcalf's now available in a trade. Maybe he'll come to the Patriots. Nope. Cooper Kupp's now available. Maybe he'll come to the Patriots. Nope. Like, we're going to just keep doing this perpetual cycle at that position.
Yep. All right, 855-PAT-500 is the Ace Ticket hotline. Podcast@patriots.com is the email address. What else do we want to put on the table before we get to the listeners, viewers?
I do like the Morgan Moses signing.
I really like
we talked a lot about defense, but Morgan Moses is
arm length. What's his arm length?
35 inches. Yeah, he's got long arms.
Long arms.
Give Will Campbell an inch and still be.
Yeah, him
enough.
and Onwenu next to each other they're gonna be a really good run blocking right side of the line, which is typically what Josh likes to do offensively. Marcus Cannon and Shaq Mason and the guys over on that side. So he's a very good NFL starter. Is he a great elite tackle? No, but he's an NFL player, as Paul said, and I think he'll help out a lot. They still need a left tackle, they still need a left guard, and they might need a center. So they still got a ways to go on the offensive line.
When they trade Joe Milton for a first, they'll be able to.
That's it.
Yeah, right.
But it will be nice that come August we won't be saying, so who's the right tackle, right?
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. We know who the right
we'll
tackle is.
just be saying who the left tackle is.
That's the question. I wonder where it puts Caden Wallace, and are those guys going to get a chance at left tackle, or are we just going to bring that experiment back out and see if anybody who's been on the right side can play on the left side, or are they going to make a move for a legit left? I mean, there's just not a lot of options. It's hard to.
Would you
fix
take
everything.
Cam Robinson at this point?
At the right price,
I'd
I
take
would.
him. Yeah.
At the right price, I would.
Is he going to get like a Dan? It's Dan Moore. Right?
Dan Moore. Yeah.
Is he going to get a Dan Moore like contract?
It doesn't sound like it if he hasn't signed already.
Yeah.
I feel like if that deal was out there for him, he would have signed yesterday.
It's probably a good assumption.
But I don't know. I mean, I would take him at the right price, but I think his last couple games in Minnesota are really cooling his market. I mean, his
numbers were comparable
rough.
to Radarian Lowe's.
He was rough down the stretch for them last year.
How does this version of the free agent frenzy feel differently to you than in 21 when they signed Judon and Hunter Henry and all those guys? Does it feel any different?
Yeah, I think it feels similar.
Yeah.
To me, to 21. I thought that was a good free agent group in 21. I thought Judon was really good for them. I thought they filled some holes that weren't, like Evan likes to say, like they're not sexy, guys that you could put on your fantasy team, but like Godshaw filled a role as a run stopper for 4 years. I was never a huge fan, but it's an unglamorous spot. He did what he was asked to do. Hunter Henry did a really good job at tight end. I thought that
the difference I feel this
Bourne
time.
and Aguilar were kind of disappointments.
Yeah,
I would say.
This time, I think there was more competition this year.
Yeah,
than there was that year.
No doubt. That's why I think this was a little bit more like a 1 than 21.
It's more meat and potatoes this year, where that year you had a big edge rusher, you added a couple receivers,
Right. And people look and say, well, they got a bunch of guys for like these small money deals. Well, it's relative.
Yeah.
It's 25 years later.
Right.
So the money, like Robert Spillane's contract is probably not all that different percent. I'm not going to go with the percentages.
I know
and the
what
cap
you
and
mean,
all that,
but
I don't
inflation.
think it's, people looked at that Spillane contract yesterday, and the initial reaction was, "Wow, that's a lot of money." But it's market value, like for these guys. The one that was really high is Milton Williams, and that was different than anything they did in 01.
Yep.
They didn't have a guy that was. I mean, he's like is he the second or third highest paid defensive tackle now? No. Chris Jones and Christian Wilkins.
He's now the highest per season in Patriots history.
Right. Right. So that's I don't care what era, that's a big money contract.
Yep.
And a lot of the projections had him well below that. heading in. But that's
Reportedly.
Well,
that's the price you had to pay.
Yeah.
No. The analytics sites.
No, I know.
They give
They're
you
right
these,
around 20.
They give you these estimates, and it was like 17 to 19, and you got 26.
Yeah.
Like that's what you have to pay when you need a guy.
Right.
When you want the guy, that's what you have to do. I applaud that approach.
Yeah. I've
It's
had
not
my,
my money, of
my
course, but-
concerns about Milton Williams that I expressed before free agency, but when you look at his body type, his game, and then you look at Jeffrey Simmons in Tennessee, similar type of players, similar weight, similar size. I could see how Vrabel and Terrell Williams look at Milton Williams and say, "That's our Jeffrey Simmons here," and hopefully it works out that well.
Yeah.
But
I don't care what they paid these guys. They wanted them, they got them.
Yeah.
I don't care what they paid.
I think he's a little bit of a tone setter too. I love the energy that he plays with, and watching him play off of Carter, certainly that's a big part of it. But he brings his own juice too. It's not just a guy picking up the scraps from what was left over from Davis and Carter. So I just think they needed kind of, and I bet it was part of the pitch of like, look, we need somebody to be our guy in this room to really set the tone and be a leader and, every day show up with energy. And from what I've seen of Milton Williams, it seems like he can be that kind of guy for them. I think they need to do more, though, and build around him. And, Tonga is a minor piece of it. I think that's a role that you kind of just have to have kicking around. But at the same time, when you look at some of these defensive front seven guys, we say, all right, well, we start complimenting Milton Williams with one of these promising edge rushers, in that early second round that are still available. And then you start to see like him and Barmore and this guy off the edge, and you feel like, all right, they're starting to really build something here.
Yeah, you need I think Landry can be that in the short term, like kind of that trash collector that just kind of finishes the sack, and he's probably not going to be the one that gets the pressure, but he's there to just clean it up, and I think he can do that. But I'm with you that those day two edge rushers, to get another guy that can win a one-on-one by himself is attractive. I don't know if they need to do that at the top of the draft necessarily anymore, but like our guy Josiah Stewart or someone like that that can just scream off the edge.
Still feels like they're a scheme pressure defense right now.
Can we get a? Do you think there's a chance that you could get a big jump from Keon White?
It's going to
I'm
see a lot of
skeptical.
one-on-ones, especially if
skeptical.
Barmore's in there. I mean, it's definitely a better scheme for him. They're not going to ask him to post up and keep contained on the edge in this defense. They'll let him get up the field and go after the ball. But I still think he's better inside. Like, I still think he's at his best rushing over the guard on third down and things like that. But now if maybe the line's opening towards Milton Williams, he's going to have those one-on-ones.
That's kind
on
of
the
what
other
I'm thinking.
side. Yeah.
And I'm not telling you that I thought Keon White blew everybody away at the beginning of last year when everybody was getting all excited about the sack numbers, but he is a high motor guy that you're talking about with Milton Williams. I've seen Keon White be the guy that chases down the screen 20 yards downfield. He has athleticism and a competitive streak to him, and I just wonder if maybe in a more pigeonholed role, and as Evan said, maybe less attention.
Right.
Maybe you could get
It's possible.
Bump. Maybe you can get a bump from him.
I mean, put me on the skeptical side with him
Yeah, I know
and
you
how
don't
he
like it.
Where's the
fits.
Super Bowl this year?
San Francisco?
I don't
Is
know.
it?
Right?
Is that
sure.
You
Oh,
should,
I don't
you
know.
should start
Stood
looking
out.
into
If only there was a
rooms.
way I could figure that out.
You look at
Start
those
looking
four
into
guys,
rooms
though.
and fights.
If White, everything seems to really hinging on Christian Barmore being healthy. But Barmore, White, Landry, Milton Williams, those are four elite athletes up front, like guys that really tested. Now Landry's sort of a little bit older now, but like when he came out of college, Boston College, he was a 9. Relative athletic score guy. 9.0 relative athletic score guy.
Shades of Seymour, Warren, Wilfork.
I wouldn't go that far, but they're four really good athletes. And if you want to build a defense that is going to be aggressive and get up the field and isn't going to be as much, hold the point of attack, like these four guys can definitely do that.
There's like an upside to everything that they did. Now there's a lot of ifs.
Oh, of course.
If Harold Landry somehow reverts to his pre-ACL form, because the last 2 years it's not been that. And I know that you look at the sack numbers and say, wow, they haven't had a guy that's 9.5
I think he was
sacks.
like that in the last couple years of Vrabel.
I thought the year before he tore his ACL, he was dynamic. And then he was a Pro Bowler, got the contract, and then he tore his ACL. and I don't think he's been dynamic anymore. Mike showed me some clips this morning, and he had a lot of Keon White-like sacks. Like, coming off the edge, quarterback, has got time, steps up in the pocket right into Harold Landry. I think one of them was Drake May.
Yep.
One of the sacks that he had was Drake May.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like this, immediate win off the edge. Here, T.J. Watt kind of explosiveness.
Right.
That's not how he wins.
No.
Von Miller's available.
Von
He's a
Miller
very
is
good run
available.
defender, though.
Yeah.
I should
Yeah,
put that
yeah.
out. He's
No,
a
that's
really good run
right.
defender.
He's
And
solid.
He's a good player.
He's a good player. I wonder with
yeah.
Keon White, too many guys just to beat guards. And can Keon White handle tackles? And that's something I think he's struggled with what I've seen in camp. He tries just power rush, and it doesn't usually work. He doesn't really have the speed or the bend to get around the corner. So if Barmore can't go, I can definitely see a
I'm
role
doing the
for
Fred
him.
Kirsch with Barmore.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume he's not part of the equation.
Yeah, so
and
if
that
he
way,
isn't,
if he
then
is,
I
you feel even
see
better.
Keon White as solid, situational, interior kind of pass rush guy. I just wonder if they're going to play 4-man front, 2 linebackers, nickel, go upfield and get it. Where does Keon White fit into that first, second down? I struggle putting him as a defensive end, putting him up against tackles. Ideally he'd be inside, but it feels like you got 2 good inside guys now. That's where my head's at with him. He's got stuff to prove to me against tackles on the outside.
He's got to play 4-3 end, right? Like, you got to put his hand in the dirt, 4-3 end, and hope that
Plays Dietrich Wise.
if you just go up the field instead of having to do some of the, dent the pocket and keep the quarterback in. And
I
not
just
his
don't
jam,
think he
like-
has the moves for an outside rusher.
No.
He admits it.
Yeah. I
He's
know.
never
Never
and I
did.
were
He didn't
talking
have
to
it in
him.
college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He can put guards on skates. I mean, he's he's
he's
a nightmare
he
against
can
guards.
push you back, but he's not that immediate win type of guy.
Yep.
It takes him a little time to dance. You like that with the ball? Yeah.
Sure.
All right, let's go to the phones. 855 PATS 500 is the hotline. Matt's in Boston. What's up, Matt?
Hey guys, first time caller, long time listener. I really agree with what you guys were saying about yesterday. I'm feeling a lot better about the actual NFL talent on the team and not just these, end of the 50th man on the roster guys starting for us. I'm really hoping we get our wide receiver 1 with Travis Hunter at pick 4. But as far as the rest of the free agents go, do you think the Pats could be making another move before the draft, or what's the timetable on kind of the rest of free agency after the first 48 hours?
Listen, there were many, many years where the Patriots were not participants in the first day, and then they would make some moves later. There's still a lot of things that are going to happen before the draft and even after the draft. So this roster is not.
There's still moves, and I think the trade market is not dead. I think there could be a significant trade to happen.
Yeah, I think in free agency, most of the needle movers are off the board at this point. But just looking at interior offensive line, for example, I still think there's centers and guards out there that could start in the NFL on a team.
There's a guy from the Colts that signed with Minnesota that evidently the Patriots were.
Will Fries.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is Fries. I always thought it was Freeze.
Fries. I don't know.
But
French.
It's spelled Fries.
Reportedly, they were involved in him, so they're looking for that too.
Yeah.
Interior.
Smart.
Left guard. Yeah,
OL.
left guard is a big spot, I think, for them still.
Thanks, Matt. Let's go to Joe in New Hampshire. What's up, Joe?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Hey.
So I was just thinking, because seemingly every wide receiver in existence doesn't want to come to New England, would you guys consider trading a 6th or 7th round pick to get Cooper Kupp, just to make sure you have
You don't have
somebody with?
Yeah, but he's saying.
Oh, he's already released.
No, he won't be released until tomorrow.
He's saying, would you do it to make sure you
would
get him?
you consider just calling the
Oh,
Rams?
yeah,
saying,
sure.
I'll give you
Yeah.
your 7th and not release them.
Yeah, I would.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just my thought, since seemingly every wide receiver doesn't want to come here. But thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I'm coming around.
I haven't
to
heard
Cooper
anything
Kupp.
specifically about Cooper Kupp on where he'd like to
No,
go.
but when you're
Contender,
like
but
everybody
like
always says
Oh,
that.
he said a contender?
Like everybody else.
Every year when guys are made available, so-and-so has been given permission to seek a trade. And everybody says, why would you trade for him when he's going to get released?
Well, because then you have to compete against everybody
That's
else.
why you trade for him.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
To make sure you get him. If it's
Right.
someone you really want, and
Yeah.
you can. Now, maybe they don't feel like that. Maybe they're like, well, I'll take him. but if I don't get them, it's no loss either.
Right.
Like, and to your point about guys that shake free too, and this is why I think the trade market's not dead. A lot of times these free agent contracts. So the Patriots spent what, $200 million yesterday in guarantees, something like that.
160.
So a lot of times you make these moves, you don't know for sure you're going to have these moves get executed, and all of a sudden you do. So now you look at it and say, okay, so what's our cap look like? All right, well, that's a little less than we like to have as a pad going into the season. So where can we trim some fat that maybe we would have been content not to trim had we not landed Milton Williams, as an example?
Yeah.
You know, so that's 104 million that we didn't necessarily know for sure we were going to be adding.
Yeah.
So now that's what teams do. Like the Vikings spent a lot of money yesterday too.
I think they spent the most. Of
Yeah,
any team.
maybe there's somebody in Minnesota.
I will give you something for Jordan Addison.
There you go.
I don't know what that is, but I will give you something.
You know, so maybe that doesn't require the 4th overall pick that A.J. Brown would, but maybe it's a 3rd round pick or something. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. But Jordan Addison, really good player, would be a really good fit for this team.
Yep.
Now, I don't think Minnesota's going to let him go anywhere, but he's sort of been periodically wide receiver-ish with Minnesota, you know, because he's obviously number 2.
He's a streaky player. He was streaky in college too.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that will have a 150-yard game, and then the next week he'll catch 2 passes. Right? You know, it's a streaky player. But I'm coming around to Cooper Kupp just because at this point there's the chairs are circling and there are not that many seats left. Right?
I just feel like it just would add to your ever-growing list of third receivers. I want Cooper Kupp. I actually want him because I do think he will help that room. But you need more talent at the position.
Yes.
Younger
Ian's in North Carolina. Hey, Ian.
Hey, guys. I hope you're doing well. First of all, the whole Milton Williams thing, I think my Panthers friends are going to kill me being here in North Carolina in the contract negotiations. But I'm pretty confident after yesterday that there's going to be 2 quarterbacks off the board in the top 3. I don't know. I just think the Giants and the Browns, I just can't see them going forward with Kenny Pickett or any of those guys. I just think one of those 3 teams are going to take a quarterback, and then that board's just going to fall, and we're going to end up with Carter or Hunter.
Well, one of them is definitely going to take a quarterback. Like Cam Ward's going to go at the top of the draft. But
that wasn't the way it was perceived when the draft talk started.
Well,
Cam Ward's going to.
Cam Ward is QB1.
I think he's going to go.
You guys, all of you guys, parlance.
Oh,
he's
please.
QB1.
Oh, you're above that parlance now.
Yeah, I just said he's the top quarterback available. I mean, I speak in English.
We're literally saying the same thing.
But Ian makes a good point because I forgot about that Kenny Pickett trade. That's another example of teams doing what Evan talked about. They're telling you they don't love these quarterbacks, and that they're even going to look at a Kenny Pickett option as a possibility, as a stopgap.
Yeah,
there's a nice market now for it used to be franchise quarterback, rookie deal quarterback, and there was no middle class to the quarterback market. Now, because of Baker and Geno and Darnold,
it's the Reclamation Project
there's now a middle class to that. So Daniel Jones gets a decent amount of money. Kenny Pickett gets moved.
What's the Mac Jones market these days?
Oh,
not great.
That's another one.
He's waiting around.
Not great.
That's another one. Now, I would say he's a backup. He's a backup market. I think Kenny Pickett is probably not complete. I think Kenny Pickett is similar to Darnold. When Darnold was done with the Jets, and Kenny Pickett didn't really have much success in Pittsburgh, but he wasn't a complete disaster. And like Zach Wilson as an example,
who just signed with somebody,
Miami, as a backup. Yeah, which is not a bad move for Miami, a team that needs the backup. It's the guy that's actually played some games now, and as opposed to Skylar Thompson and
right.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin Fields gets a decent contract. They're telling you that this quarterback stinks.
They're basically telling you anything but Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders is a better option.
Well, I think that definitely anything better than Cam Ward. I think has kind of cemented himself in maybe a little bit of a tier above everybody else in this draft. But Shedeur, Jackson Dart, Will Howard, all those guys, everybody doesn't want to touch.
Anything else, Ian?
I was just going to say, what about the Giants? because at 3, I mean, they don't really need. I mean, of course, Abdul Carter would be nice, but they have a good, pretty good D line already, and they've added a Debo and Holland to their secondary.
Right,
So
but you need
Travis
2 of
Hunter,
those
I mean,
teams to take quarterbacks.
Right. So if
Right, so
if Cam
I
Ward
think
goes
the
1
Giants take
and the Giants don't make another move, they're probably going to have to look long and hard at Sanders. Yeah.
Right,
Now
and so
I
then
think that's
Carter-
why they're talking to Aaron Rodgers,
True.
because they don't want him.
But
All right, thanks, Ian. Thanks for the call. All right.
That's why I would root, if you're a Patriots fan, root for Rodgers to go to Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And then I think that almost forces the Giants' hands. Like, you can't go in with Tommy Cutlets. You know?
It's a bad spot to be in.
It's a bad
they're in
spot
a
to
bad
be in.
spot. All right, my food's here, so we're going to take a break. Lots of good talk. Emails are flying in, so we're going to get to a lot of those right after this.
Isn't it time to get exactly what you want? Welcome to Red Hot Deal Days from Verizon, where you get your pick of our best deals. Like My Plan, where you can pick the perks you want and save on every one. For limited time, bring your own phones to a Verizon store and you can get My Plan for our best price ever. Get exactly what you want in your phone plan and only pay for what you need. Bring your phones to your Verizon store today and get My Plan. These deals won't last. It's your Verizon.
With FedEx One Rate, you can ship to your student for a simple, predictable flat rate. Send a box full of home-baked treats that say, "Your father and I miss you." Or send a box full of instant noodles that says, "Your father and I would like you to stop asking us for money." Either way, one rate fits all. FedEx One Rate. 2-day shipping, one flat rate. Starting at $14.50. Visit FedEx.com/OneRate for details. Exclusions apply.
Whether you're in the game or betting on the game, you'll need a game plan. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the New England Patriots, provides you with everything you need to build your personal betting game plan so you can get in on all the action while practicing safe bets. Visit DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming to learn more about all the safe betting tools DraftKings has to offer. Hope is here, 800-327-5050 or gamblinghelplinema.org. Must be 21 plus. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com. Physically present in Massachusetts. See DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources.
It's time now for another episode of Pats from the Past podcast. Matt Smith alongside Paul Perillo. Pleased to be joined by number 70 on your scorecard, but number 1 in our hearts, at least today, Paul.
Absolutely. He's right next to me.
Yeah, and you better be careful.
Yeah.
And that's Logan Mankins. Logan, thanks for coming in. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
You talked about being, selfless, and, like Richard was, but you obviously displayed that. You talked about, don't forget that you played tackle a little bit. Matt's got, that the anecdote from Dante about the day that you had to play tackle, like on a moment's notice.
So we were this was your first year. Both Paul and I are kind of embarrassed about it, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't want to put words in Paul's mouth, but we're part of the Hall of Fame committee to select people to get on the ballot. And then legitimately, when the people get on the ballot, it's a fan vote, And as you can imagine, skill position guys, are going to get the fan vote. But this is the first year that you were on that ballot.
Yep.
And so as part of one of the things that I do here is, hey, who's a great person as an ambassador for Richard Seymour, for Ty Law, for Teddy Bruschi, for Logan Mankins, that can really speak to who that person was as a player and why they deserve to be, why do they think they would be a great Patriot Hall of Famer? And of course we went to Dante. And so we're talking to Dante, and he's giving you all the platitudes that you could think of that Dante would give you, nobody tougher, comparing you as somebody who did coach. He wasn't maybe an offensive line coach, but he was on the team when Hannah was here.
Yeah, he was.
So it's not blasphemy for him to mention your name, and to me that's an awful lot of credibility. But we stopped after one point. All right, Dante, that was great. He goes, I'd like to say one more thing. This is really important to me. And he talked about, again, how selfless you were, and the fact that, I guess it was Light probably who got hurt, and you're playing the Ravens. And hey, guess what, Logan? You're playing tackle this week. And that's the Ravens with Terrell Suggs and somebody like that. And he talked about how you nearly pitched a shutout that game, but that you were pissed on one particular play that maybe Suggs got a hand up or maybe like sort of swept and knocked Tom down, and he talked about how pissed you were about that. And he goes, it's okay for the quarterback to get rid of the ball too, Logan. Don't blame that one on you. But that's how he thought. That's how he felt about you. Do you remember that game in that week and having to kick out?
Yeah, I still remember. I shouldn't have got beat on that one. I just sit a little too far. I got feeling too comfortable, and he got me on an up and under. But, those games, I actually liked going out to tackle every now and then. Just, I don't know. It was fun just to change it up every now and then. But that was the second time. The first time I played tackle, I didn't find out till like 20 minutes before the game. So that one was a little tougher. But the one against the Ravens was nice because I actually got to practice all week at tackle, so that was a lot better. But I liked tackle. It was fun.
What was the other one?
Miami at home. Okay, and then one time I had to play the second half, I think, against the Texans or something. So but I was the backup tackle.
It amazes me. Like, what does he say? Like, yeah, I set too wide. I got up and under. It was probably 20 years ago at this point. Like
exactly.
You remember your bad plays.
It amazes
you remember
me.
the good ones.
Oh, I can tell you about the tape measure home runs I allowed in college. But, we don't have to get to that. It's another podcast for a different time.
Right.
Again, I want to stay with the teammate and the selflessness. And the season you played on a torn ACL.
Well,
Phillip Rivers played a quarterback, in the AFC Championship game against you guys on a torn ACL, and I think it was one of the more heroic performances I've seen. You played a whole season like that. How do you do that?
I don't know. They said maybe I was used to having a loose knee or something. I don't know, but I had to wear one of those weird braces for most of the year, and it hurt for the first couple games, and then it just kind of went away. So, and then after the season, we went and saw the doctor, and he's like, "This thing's been torn a long time."
Oh, so you didn't realize it until
we didn't know it was fully torn.
It's one of those don't ask, don't tell.
The doctors just kind of shook it around and said, "Well, what do you think?" And I was like, "Well, let me give it a shot this week at practice." And he's like, "All right." And then I got through drills. I was like, "We'll just go with it." And he's like, "All right, well, we need to get it checked out later." So,
see, people think that sometimes you overstate just how matter-of-fact people are about things. This is Logan Mankins. This is how he was in the locker room after games. He would talk about, the game plan and what they did well, and it was the same level of intensity and just matter-of-fact, everything. What do you think? Yeah, I can give it a shot at practice. Let's see if I could play. He had a torn ACL.
Right.
And it's like, it's his job. It's no big deal. I'm just going to go out and get the job done.
Do you get embarrassed when you hear that, Logan? Like people, like Paul and I want to heap praise on you for that. You're an offensive lineman. You probably don't give a sugar about, that's what I was supposed to do.
Well, everyone loves to be praised, but I do get embarrassed when it's in front of me. I'd rather you talk about me when I'm not around.
I don't mean to embarrass you, believe me. I'm not I've been Matt and I have been here for over 20 years, so it's like, it's not like the wide-eyed Chris Farley on Saturday Night Live, that was awesome. I'm not in awe of, But
that's an awesome.
That's an awe-inspiring season.
Yeah. Most people, sadly, today at work have the sniffles and they're down for 3 days. Do you know what I mean?
Especially me.
And so when somebody says, "No, it's important to go to work," and I might not be feeling 100%, but I still think I can do my job.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah, well, I think people used to ask me why I did it, and I was like, well, my dad always said, if you can go to work, you go to work. And he always joked, just tape an aspirin to it and you'll be all right.
Did you try it?
No. but it was fine. It hurt for a while, and then it went away, and then it just I really noticed it as the season went on. There was no more squatting in the weight room. Like, that stuff was not happening anymore. Or if you tried to walk down an incline, you could feel your knee sliding. But so thankfully the football fields aren't inclined.
I think your league is filled with really, really tough players. And I see what you guys go through. I remember the year that Algie Crumpler was here. I don't know if you guys crossed. I forget the timeline, but what he went through to play every week was ridiculous. And you could see the toughness. But I think a lot of people in your situation, Logan, would have said, this is my career. I have a finite amount of time to earn money, And if I play on a torn ACL, it might affect my performance. It could affect my salary down the road. They're going to probably look to, make me take a haircut next year. Or if I'm going to be a free agent, but yet you put all that aside and just said, no, I have a job to do, and I'm going to go out and do it.
Well, I was fortunate. I had just signed a big contract. And then
All the
that
more-
played into
all the
it
more
too, 'cause
reason
I
to
always
sit,
made fun of
right?
the guys around the league that would get this big deal and then they would get hurt. And I was like,
This is what people do.
I would
And,
make
and
fun
those
of 'em.
guys are tough, too. Like, I'm
in
not.
our locker room, I would make fun of guys like that. And so then I'm possibly hurt, not 100% knowing if I'm hurt or not. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be that guy that I've been ragging on for my whole career already.
Right, you don't want to be a fraud.
Yeah.
Right?
And up until that point, what was that, my 6th year? I'd never missed a practice or game, so I was like, I can't start getting hurt now.
Right.
But then I did get a few practices off that year.
So then, Logan.
That was nice of Bill.
And now, great moments in history.
Oh, guy.
What's the matter? Guy, what's the matter, guy?
Twice this week. I'm mad at
Kid.
I'm mad at myself.
Kid,
more than I'm
did you
mad
misread
at
the traffic,
circumstances. No, what I usually do, because I've learned over the years, 95, even though it's a short distance from 295 to 495, that little stretch there, it's usually where all the messes happen. So I've learned, get off at the Emerald Square exit at 295, which is Route 1, and just take Route 1 all the way up here. Never any problems,
You didn't
ever.
do it today.
Today, I was like, you know what? It's the late morning. It should be fine.
Supposed to be one
What
of the
could
most-
happen?
It's supposed to be one of the busiest traffic
What could
times,
happen?
in recent memory. So Eric said,
So I said-
normally there's traffic, but today I'm going to roll the dice.
At rush hour, there's usually traffic, so I'm like, it's 11:15 in the morning. What could possibly go wrong? Well, some jackass drove into the median there, and
The newest spreader jackknife on the Santa Ana.
his car is like stuck in trees in the
It's a
median.
god-awful mess.
And there's like, I'm stuck in traffic, and there are literally people like trying to get through on the breakdown lanes to try to get by, and all of a sudden you're hearing, all the sirens are coming. There's cop after cop, and then fire truck after fire truck, rescue squad. By the time we got up to the accident, there were a half dozen fire trucks blocking the passing lane because this guy literally, there's like, you know how some of the medians have like, they dip down, but there's like vegetation and trees and stuff? This guy drove his car into the trees.
About 5 minutes later.
And then earlier this week, we had that thing down on Route 1. Our webmaster got stuck in it too. It was Monday or Tuesday.
Cool story, Hansel.
Yeah. Well, hey.
How are we going? Traffic on the threes?
That's another great moment from
All right. Back here on Patriots Unfiltered, 855 past 500 is the hotline. Podcast at patriots.com is the email address. You like that?
I like Matt making fun of Eric.
Traffic talk. We all have it in common. Weather,
Full
traffic.
story, Hansel.
Yep.
You need the sound of the
story
chopper
just
in the
wouldn't end.
background, like.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have worked with Eric. Too much non-football talk for
Oh.
me.
Oh.
It just
Oh.
it was.
No, you guys would have no use for each other.
Yeah, no. Doesn't
Yeah,
sound
I
that
couldn't.
good.
In terms of like how two people would approach the same job, I can't think of two people more diametrically opposed.
I'm gonna take that as a compliment.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should.
I mean, Eric hated it here. You actually like football.
Eric
so-
wrote a good feature.
No, he-
I'll say that about
solid
Eric.
writer.
Eric
Yeah,
could
solid
sit down
writer.
and talk to a player and write a really good story about that player.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Now, it would take 2 months.
Fair point.
There's just 7
Fair
sit-downs
point.
with Nate Ebner.
But he would not necessarily want to do like because he used to do the review,
The Bridgestone review.
Remember, he used to
Yeah.
do that, but he wouldn't do it anywhere near
No.
as in depth as Evan does.
No.
No interest in that.
Nope. All right. Again, 855 past 500 is the hotline. Podcast at patriots.com is the email address. And you can sign up for the newsletter by going to patriots.com/PU newsletter. And you want to do that. It's a lot of fun. We're trying to convince Deuce to get a dog this week. So
the Pooh's letter.
Yeah.
It is not going well.
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see.
All right. Let's get back to the phones.
Are
They're
you
still
reneging?
stacked. Patty's in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
What's going on?
Hey.
Hey.
So I just want to say I'm 100% in Paul's camp. I would trade the 4th overall pick for A.J. Brown. I'm not sure if he's listening, but maybe Miguel can help me out. I think I read somewhere that if they trade him or if they move on from him, like outright release him before June 1st, I think they're on the hook for like some crazy $50 million or something like that of dead cap money. So I don't think they'd be willing to part ways with him for the 4th overall pick. But I mean, if the option was out there, I would 100% do it. And to kind of piggyback off of what Ian said, Brian Daboll and I don't know the Giants GM's name, but their jobs are on the line this year.
Right.
So I'm not sure if they look at what happened last year in New York with the Jets and how volatile of a player and personality that Aaron Rodgers is, that they would want to bring him in. And to me, maybe I'm just throwing it out there into the ether, but I don't think they're going to want to choose Aaron Rodgers to quarterback their team next year, and I could definitely see them going with Shedeur. And
I think it's the opposite. I think because they're so desperate to save their jobs, they need to win games now. And I'm not telling you they're going to win games with Aaron Rodgers, but they're not going to win games with Shedeur Sanders. There's at least a chance that Aaron Rodgers has an attack of conscience and decides to prepare for an NFL season and actually puts his best foot forward and tries to help the Giants win games. Shedeur Sanders is not going to be ready yet to do that. So I think it's the opposite. I think if you were a team that was a little bit more comfortable in that spot, like the Raiders just made a coaching change. If the Raiders were picking 3rd, they just made a coaching change. Let's say they didn't do the Geno Smith thing. They'd be more apt to go with Shedeur Sanders because there's no urgent. They're not going to get fired in year 1.
Yeah.
Unless it really goes sideways on them. They could afford to do that. I think the urgency for Dable and Shane right now is we got to find a way to win some games.
Yeah. I can't believe Shane's I can't believe he survived. I wanted to use those words carefully, but I can't believe that he survived.
I mean, the Giants might be the single reason why no team wanted to do the offseason hard knocks.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and it's not just Saquon Barkley. Like, his kid telling him to draft Jaden Daniels and him, laughing it off and then seeing what happened with Jaden Daniels, the look on his face at the podium at the Combine was just like, I know.
His first question out of the gate about Saquon, and he had to know it was coming.
Yeah.
Speaking of I know, we're coming up on another weekend without football, so why not spend the off-season getting organized with Bob's Discount Furniture? Shop Bob's and revamp every room with smart storage solutions like the Beaumont bedroom set, featuring built-in drawers for all your Patriots gear, or the customizable modular Bob's sectional, which now includes hidden storage consoles for all the blankets, remotes, and that football you practice throwing when no one is looking. So stock up on winning storage styles with Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. And I need to add that Visit MA is sponsoring Unfiltered. Patriots Unfiltered is sponsored by the Massachusetts 250 campaign, commemorating a history of possibility. Plan your revolutionary weekend at Massachusetts250.org. That's Massachusetts250.org. So
there you go.
Yep. League year starts Wednesday, right?
Wednesday at 4.
Yeah, Wednesday at 4. I got my hair cut.
You ready?
Get ready for it. Went to GA Barbershop
Excellent.
down the street here in Foxborough. Make sure I'm ready to go for the opening of the league year. So ready to go.
I mean, the league's been open for.
Well, yeah,
negotiation.
But officially, all the contracts start.
I think we should just say
end.
the negotiation period starts in Indianapolis at the Combine, and then we just do this whole song and dance. It's okay.
Yep. Back to the phones. Willems and Philem. What's up, Willem?
Hey, Fred. How you doing?
Good. You're gonna send us your pictures so that we can get it into the Guess the Listener contest.
Sure. Tell me just tell me what I need to do. That's all.
Just email our picture to podcast@patriots.com. You're one of our regular callers, so you're eligible.
Yeah.
You got it. No problem.
Okay.
Okay. Where do I begin? Well, first of all, I'll say, in terms of what the Patriots have done in free agency, that's how you do it. That's somewhat how you do it. That's better than last year. Oh, Hammers, that's way better. And I have nothing too much to say about that. But you still have to take care of that tackle and that wide receiver position. I mean, Mac Hollins, okay, but I'm not impressed.
No.
Not by that.
No.
But I want to talk about something about far as with Deuce and then something with Evan real fast, and then I'm out y'all way, okay? Deuce, you say, I'm always with you, build through the draft. Mr. Kraft even said it himself. Build through the draft, build through the draft. But I just want to put this out there for you, okay? 2 years of a rebuild, 7 years of bad drafting. We don't need to go into why that happened, but this team has not proven, as far as I can even remember, basically, that they can build a receiver. Forget Julian Edelman, because it took him a minute. So I'm not putting him out the way, but can you actually say, if they draft 2 receivers from this draft, I can name a couple of names, but I ain't going to go into that. Just, do you think they can build a receiver? You know what I mean? Since they can't bring one in. They don't want to come here. We already know why on top of that. And you don't want to get into a bidding war trying to get a receiver. So, like you said, build through the draft. But my problem is with them, I'm scared for this team for 7 years. I mean, look how many receivers you passed on, or even that you tried to get in, and you couldn't even build them up. So do you feel like they can do this?
Well, here's the hope.
I don't feel like that.
I get what you're saying. History is not good, but here's the hope. When you say they haven't had good luck, who are they? They is different now. They is different. The assistant coach, I guess McDaniels is still in the mix, but overall, they is different. And if you believe that Vrabel's running the show, even Elliott Wolf isn't the guy who would be possibly making this potential pick of a wide receiver. It would be Vrabel and maybe Ryan Cowden. So that's my hope, is that they is different now. So let's see how these days do.
I hope so with Fred. I hope what Fred's saying, but I think there's also a lot of truth to what William's saying, in that Elliott Wolf was here last year and picked receivers, and Josh has been here and had struggles with. So I think that there's truth in both sides. I try not to put too much weight on what's happened in the past. At some point, they've got to just get lucky and hit a receiver. Right. But you're totally right, William. I mean, it's a huge part, and we spend so much time chasing the number one. I just want good, productive receivers that can fit in.
I agree.
I don't know. You're totally right, though. We got to be pulling our hair out trying to find one of these guys. Seems like you should have just hit one randomly at this point.
And then they draft Jacoby Myers and they got rid of him.
Right. The only guy who's anything close to being a solid player.
He just picked him up.
Their best receivers over the last half decade are Pop Douglas in the 6th round and Jacoby Myers as an undrafted free agent. So that tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
But Deuce, I'm with you. You know what I mean? Every year you always say it. When we get around this time, you always say it. Please understand, I'm always with you. It's just, now Mac Roll is still there. Man, I don't believe in him. I don't think none of y'all should. No. Like, I just, But with Mark Vrabel there and a couple other people there, maybe this could be a little different. So we'll see. Just one more thing, and I'm done out here. Evan, you and Alex up here pumping that DK Metcalf, right? Now, that was pretty, I would say, okay, I was with y'all with that, but I forgot to think about this. What if DK didn't want to come to you? I mean, you two gentlemen, I told y'all my favorites. You know what I mean? Y'all really are. You and Alex. Just y'all talked about this for years about us trying to have a receiver. I don't care who it was, whether it was Justin Jefferson, whether it's Jamar, whoever. I didn't care. Or even when y'all did the YouTube thing y'all had at one time. I'm just, do you think we can do it this time? I'm like, we gonna wait till another year? Is this what you and Alex gonna tell us on Catch 22? Y'all gonna tell us? Well, we gotta wait. Kick the can and wait till next year, and the draft, the receiver core gonna be better for next year. Is that what you gonna tell me, or tell us?
No, I no, and both of us were pretty gung ho, or just banging the table for them to make that DK Metcalf trade. And as it turns out, it went for a 2nd round pick.
William.
They had a higher 2nd round pick to offer to Seattle than Pittsburgh did. So you would think that they had the better offer on the table. That one was a tough one. That one came across, and both Alex and I were pretty bummed about that for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Do you
that
think
was a
that
tough
Seattle deferred to DK Metcalf and said, yeah,
I mean, that's a nice story to stomach it a little bit better, I suppose.
Yeah.
Is that he just wasn't too interested in coming here. That contract is massive as well, so you never know with that sort of thing. But this is why I said at the beginning of the show that I think we're just getting to the point now where at the top of the draft, they've missed on day 2 receivers. They've missed on, Jalen Polk. It wasn't great his rookie year, but if you're drafting a guy in the top 10, that's a different level of talent than what you're getting at 38.
Is it possible that they put all their chips on Godwin and that just fell through? Like they thought, there's no way we're going to get outbid, and they weren't, but
yeah,
they didn't count on Godwin just turning down the money.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, I think it's a tough one because, right, they do have bodies at wide receiver. But, my point being, though, is, how many of these guys are you really going to have on the roster come week 1? And are you going to completely take out the opportunity for a Polk, a Baker, a Booty, any of those guys to have any sort of role on this team? Because if you're signing Cooper Kupp when he becomes a free agent and drafting a receiver in the first round and you signed Matt Collins, then, those guys are kind of out, right?
Yeah.
Like that, and maybe that's for the best. But I'm just saying, that's the other element of it too that I just come back to is, how many wide receiver 2 through 5s are you going to have on one roster? You're probably not.
Well, in this case, 3/4 through 5.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
I don't think they have anybody even worthy of 2.
I know, but that's the hard part is so what do? Do you just discard the 3 to 5s that you have and get some other 3 to 5s and hope that they maybe develop into 1 and 2s, or do you? I mean, I keep
so many numbers
reminding myself that Josh is the offensive coordinator. I keep forgetting that, and I'm kind of just really intrigued by him looking at this depth chart. And what does he think? Does he think there's nothing there? Does he think that I think I can get something out of this guy? I mean, he obviously got some stuff out of Matt Collins. Not going to be enough.
I hope it's the former, to be honest with you.
I
hope he's looking at it and saying, we need better than this, not I can get more out of these guys.
But just how do you execute it? You have 10 on the roster.
Yeah,
you can't cut 6
this
guys
is where
tomorrow.
I'm with Fred. It doesn't all have to happen today.
Right, but
I can, they've won 4 games the last 2 years, Mike, right? And I know that you're okay with that because you used to hate winning 12.
Terrible. You're sick of those 12
Terrible.
wins.
Too many wins.
It's been a couple of weeks since I said that to you. But we don't have to have it all fixed all at once. But I would hope that Josh doesn't look at this and say, I can coach these guys up. I can get more out of this.
Maybe 1 or 2 of them. Maybe 1 or 2 of them.
It is what it is. Some guys will have better numbers. Listen, it can't get any worse for Javon Baker and Jalen Polk, right? If they're going to be on the Patriots in 2025, can we assume they're going to play better than they did last year? If they're here.
If they play at all.
If they're here, they're going to do more than they did last year.
On the roster and play. Yep.
Right? Demario Douglas. Chances are, with Josh's offense, if it's something like what he's done, there's going to be some volume there for him. Kendrick Bourne had a decent year with him in 2021.
Right.
Yeah.
So, all of that said, if all of that happens, I don't think they're good enough at that position. But I do think he'll make it better. Josh will make that aspect of the passing game better.
Right. No, I don't think anyone's suggesting that they're good enough. I just wonder, is there a line between the Cooper Kupps of the world that are kind of on their last legs and trying to keep that room a little bit younger, right?
Yeah, we'll push a young guy off the roster for A.J. Brown.
Right.
Are we willing to do that for Matt Collins and Cooper Kupp?
Right.
Is your basically the crux of your question.
Yeah.
Let's go to Boston, where Chris is calling in from. What's up, Chris? Chris is no longer calling in from Boston, so we'll head over to New York, where Jeffrey is calling in. What's up, Jeffrey? Jeffrey. Going once, twice, three times.
The other part of that, Ev, when we're talking about the depth chart is, and I would agree with you, I would be hesitant, as much as I've been critical of Baker and Polk, I'd be hesitant to just say, well, that's it. They stink. They move on.
Especially Polk.
Right? Yeah. So, but I wonder if it's like a Kendrick Bourne, some of the guys that have had a chance, a little bit to be more than they've shown to be as NFL players. Maybe you take one of those guys and say, well, Matt Collins has been more productive more consistently. he can push Kendrick Bourne off the roster.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean?
But if you sign a Cooper Kupp, to me, Kendrick Bourne is gone.
Yeah, but I think he might be gone anyway.
Okay.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I wonder if Kendrick Bourne has any sort of trade value within the framework of a bigger trade. Like, not necessarily we're going to get an actual
Not A.J.
pick.
Brown for Kendrick Bourne.
Right, but I'm saying,
You don't think so?
Straight
No,
up.
they won't do that?
If you're a
If
team,
you throw Milton in, maybe.
Maybe.
if you're a team
Williams?
like, I thought that a team like Seattle, if you had offered them 38 and Kendrick Bourne for DK Metcalf, that might have been enticing to them because it gives them an NFL receiver to plug in.
Great point. Was that Alex? Did Alex come up with that?
Sure. No.
Because I know he was the DK Metcalf.
He would have traded 4 overall for DK Metcalf, but like something like that, I feel like let's talk about San Francisco again. They were going to take Kendrick Bourne back in a Brandon Ayuk trade. It was 2, 4, and Kendrick Bourne for Brandon Ayuk. Now maybe you don't have to give up all those picks anymore for Brandon Ayuk,
Right.
but do you give up a 3 in Kendrick Bourne for Brandon Ayuk? I just wonder if he has some value just because he is kind of like a plug and play guy for a lot of people.
He's an NFL player.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Check anybody?
Ooh, yeah, he came free.
I can't believe that one. I thought there's no way Kyle
Amazing.
Shanahan would ever let
Mr. Fullback got rid of arguably the best
Yeah.
fullback of all time.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that.
I we'll look at him.
You're in?
Sure.
Patriot?
I know the
It's not
social crowd is
Oh,
very
yeah.
eager for that to happen because of Mrs.
Outfit.
Juszczyk.
I'd still want Jakob Johnson, but I'll take you, Check.
Double fullback offense.
If we're going to have a fullback, that's my style of fullback, a guy who can make plays,
Yeah.
not just be a battering ram.
It concerns me that Kyle doesn't see him as a viable player
Kyle.
anymore.
It concerns
Kyle.
me that Kyle doesn't see him the way I do.
That he doesn't. If he Kyle Shanahan.
I mean, no
cutting,
Debo, no him. Those are big pieces.
Cutting
from
Kyle
the offense,
Juszczyk as Kyle Shanahan is like getting rid of his son. So like the fact that he's
Yeah.
telling you that he might not have anything left is concerning. If I was a team that was.
You're a transition for San Francisco a little bit, huh? I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna have to
And
do a little
who
different
knows when
way.
Ayuk's
Well, they're going to
coming
have to.
back.
They're going to have to pay the quarterback too.
Eldred's in North Carolina. Hey, Eldred.
Hey, fellas, how y'all doing?
Good. Hey.
I got 3 rings. 3 rings. Okay. The DK Metcalf trade. According to Rappaport, there was a team out there that offered a third and they would pay DK. But guess who that team was?
Who?
And they got bidded by Pittsburgh, New England.
Is that right?
Okay. Yes, sir. Second rant, he did on the NFL Network. The second rant is, okay, have y'all been paying attention what Chicago is doing with Williams?
Yeah.
Washington is doing with Daniels?
Yeah.
Okay. They traded, Houston to get a good tackle, Tunsil, a future second, a third, this year third, and a seventh, and they get Houston's sixth back for this year. You wouldn't do that for Larry Tunsil for your quarterback.
No.
No, I think as much as the Commanders get compared to the Patriots, I think they're in a better position to do that type of
they're
trade.
because they was in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Playoffs.
But what I'm saying
That's the
is,
championship.
like they're doing everything to support their young quarterback. I don't see New England doing that for the last 2 years. I just can't understand what.
Yeah. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I do like, from the outside, Chicago has added 3 starting offensive linemen. And this is not a small statement. That was the worst offensive line I've ever seen that day that they played the Patriots last year. That was guys that had no ability to even get in the way of anybody. The Patriots have 9 sacks that day. They had 28 all year. They had 9 of them that day. That was the worst offensive line performance I've ever seen.
Brendan Schooler was doing his
That's
thing.
part of my reasoning here.
Thank you, Fred.
They couldn't even block the gunner. That's the worst offensive line performance I've ever seen.
I just lob him up and he hits
and
him
I
out.
just knock him out of the park. That's what I do.
That was
So
disrespectful.
I understand what Eldred is saying. Like they signed now. I don't know if that fixes it. Are they 3 really good offensive line? I like Joe Tooney. I know that the guy that was a disappointment with the Rams, Jonah Jackson, I think, played for Dan Campbell in Detroit and played well in Detroit. He had an injury-plagued year for the Rams last year. So I think those moves make sense. And then they signed the center yesterday, Dahlman. I like that. I wonder if, and I just saw the graphic come up on my shows, Freddie. I wonder if the Patriots are still having a hard time getting offensive talent to come in. You know, Vrabel's a defensive guy. He was able to sign some defensive guys that he personally had connections to for the most part. You know, Milton Williams maybe a little bit different. But I think we all know how that one got done. But the other ones are guys that sort of had some familiarity with the Patriots coaching staff.
Yeah.
But they haven't been able to do that on offense.
Yeah, I think it's fair to look at the Bears as a comparison in
Thanks,
terms of the
Eldred.
offensive line. I think Washington is in a much different spot than you are. Washington was in the NFC Championship game last year. Like
They could afford to give up some of those picks that I don't
100%.
really think you could.
Right.
Is that your point?
Yeah. I mean, they can afford to give up a half their draft for Laramie Tunsil. The Patriots cannot afford to do that right now. But Chicago, they went about it a little bit differently, like you said, with the offensive linemen, and it will be interesting to see which way ends up working out. You know, I think that they're both in similar positions.
Do you have any sense of why Houston pulled the trigger on Tunsil? I mean, that seems they're going the opposite direction.
I don't
of some
think he
of
had a
these
very
teams.
good year last year. They
Yeah.
also traded Kenyon Green today.
Right.
So
Yeah,
their offensive line was a disgrace last year,
It
too.
was, and a lot of people blamed it on
Shaq Mason's
on
out, too,
Slowick,
Slowick.
and they blamed it on the scheme. But they got rid of Slowick, and they got rid of half the offensive line. So
So I'll just use that as another example of, like, you can be a playoff team and win games with, you know, less than the Eagles or the Lions on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Because that was a terrible offensive line that C.J. Stroud ran for his life behind. Now they're trying to fix it, and they should be.
They got Braxton Berrios.
Let's get to some emails. We'll get back to the phones
Good
a little
deucism
bit.
right there.
Ari from the UK writes in.
Ari.
Fred and Paul, thanks for the recommendation of There's Something About Mary. We watched it for the first time this weekend.
Oh,
wow.
One of the funniest movies I saw in the theater.
I would agree. It was a very funny movie. But
How'd
that's
you get
like
the Frank
15,
on top of the beans?
15
Huh?
years? 20
Oh, way
years?
before.
20,
95.
20 years?
90s.
Yeah,
90s?
Yeah, 95, 96.
Wow.
Few questions.
I old.
One, do you think Elliott and the team looked at a player like Laramie Tunsil and thought a trade could be possible, or are we only looking at free agents and not trying to be creative when filling needs? As it's been reported, we weren't interested in trading for DK. Well, Eldred just said we were.
There's some conflicting reports on that one.
Can I just, like, we're an hour and a half in. Like,
We are an hour and a half in.
You know me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm generally pretty skeptical of those kinds of reports. Count me in the camp that is not necessarily buying all of the reports about 20 more million offered here. They had a better offer for DK there. I don't buy. You either get the guy or you don't. Like, I don't. This whole thing about, well, he's stupid. He took $20 million. I don't buy it.
Okay.
I'm not a big believer in those kinds of stories.
Well, I know last year, the Ayuk thing, I have no doubt that they had a lot more money available for him, and he literally did not want to pick up the phone.
Yeah, no, the second part of that I know for a fact.
Yeah.
I've had people
Yeah.
that I trust tell me that.
They were fully
story.
prepared to give him more than he got, staying in San Francisco.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's true. Second question from Ari. A question for Evan. You mentioned, I think it was Catch-22, that McDaniels may want to bring in a fullback, and we just talked about Kyle Juszczyk.
Yeah, like I said, it worries me that Shanahan thinks he's cooked. If Shanahan thinks he's cooked, he's cooked.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody that knows fullbacks better than that guy.
Kyle.
So
There's no one that's lost more big games than that guy. So if he
come
says he's cooked,
like you and Bart just have to take shots at my guy for no reason.
So my problem
well,
with
there's a reason it bothers
my
you. That's
problem
the reason.
my problem with Kyle is not the backwards hat; it's the flat brim hat.
Oh yeah.
Is he a flat brim guy?
He's a flat brim hat, and he's too old for that.
He scores too many points. I know for these people.
Could ask
around
Alex
here.
about
Yeah.
That was very Paul-like right there. That was well done.
You got to put a little curve in that
good
brim.
on offense. Just stop scoring. It's not cool.
We got to ask Alex about that. What's better, like the heavy brim bend or the flat?
Definitely the heavy.
So I will say
brim
I've
bend,
seen an unbelievable amount of backwards hats
yeah.
lately. Now that it's like the thing that you can't stop seeing now.
Yeah.
Can't stop noticing it.
Hardos.
If you want to fall back,
Hardos.
know the name Robbie Outz.
Oh, Outz.
O-U-T-Z Outz.
Barth ran to
from
his
Alabama.
I call it a podium. Wasn't a podium.
free agent.
Yeah, very late pick.
He was at a desk. He was at one of the.
Undrafted
Is
free
he a
agent.
fullback?
He's a fullback.
Alabama.
He has some receiving ability, Paul, for you.
Guys with one-syllable last names tend to be tougher.
He
Great mustache.
He played.
Yeah.
He played with Bill O'Brien at Alabama. Was very productive in Bill O'Brien's offense when he was the
So
OC of
if he
Alabama.
has some versatility to his game, I'm all for it. Bring him in. I just don't want a sixth offensive lineman playing in the backfield. That does nothing for me.
What if I told you you had a mullet and a good
What if
mustache?
I told you?
He's
Nice, like like the
Football
little
guy.
handlebars and
football guy.
Football guy.
Robbie.
Is there any?
I'm
Is
in.
there a player who was signed for someone else in free agency that you wish we had signed instead of the player we did? For example, Jamian Sherwood over Bobby Spillane.
I would have said that
Same
Greenlaw over him, but Greenlaw went to the Broncos and has
No,
similar kind
I
of roles.
mean, I think the Patriots got good players. Like, I don't know. Maybe how about the San Francisco tackle that
Jalen Moore
was kind of getting some attention, and Kansas City got him.
Mm-hmm.
But he, that to me is a perfect move for Kansas City though, because they have a little bit of margin for error.
Yeah.
Like if the Patriots
If it doesn't work, they're not screwed.
Yeah, like if the Patriots are counting on a left tackle that's started 12 games over 4 years to be the answer at left tackle,
Yeah.
that's a lot different than Kansas City.
Can you count in this conversation players who re-signed with their own team? Because I can.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a left tackle I would have.
T. Higgins.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of those
Yeah.
guys.
Ronald Stanley.
Ron
Stanley.
How about a trim of that mustache, Ron?
Any news on how you guys are getting on with the idea for the schedule release? Any initial teasers? No. We are getting on with it, but there are no teasers. We don't tease that. And any news if there's a new jersey coming? No idea. I doubt it, right?
I don't know. That's a you thing.
I have no idea. So
I feel like if anybody would know,
can't help you
Say,
there.
if you don't know about the jerseys, I don't know.
You don't know? Don't show.
Don't care about what's going on.
Curtis in St. Louis, I feel like this was definitely a productive day for free agency, though they did not land a WR1 or starting left tackle. I believe they reportedly signed some significant improvements to this roster. I'm still hopeful for a Cam Robinson signing to go into the draft with at least a starting option at left tackle. Please don't mess around and try to move Moses to left. I'd also like to see another addition at receiver, like Amari Cooper. I do feel he still has some decent ball left in him, and I feel like you can get him on a fairly affordable deal. Clearly, it's way too early, but overall, with what we have, I'd give it a B- at this point.
I think that's probably fair.
I like B minus.
I would say a solid B.
Yeah, that's
You don't want
that's
to
good.
overachieve in free agency.
I don't want. You know, I like Amari Cooper as a player. They just need more than that at this stage. I think he probably can contribute to a good team, but I wouldn't want to bring him in and then have, now we have the guy, and he's not the guy anymore. You know, so
They might need to take a chance on one of those.
Yeah.
Steph
Diggs, Amari Cooper.
I'd rather Cooper than
Kupp.
Diggs, for your point.
Like one of those
Thank you.
guys that's towards the end, to use Paul's parlance, for wide receiver 2, right? Like you're not going to make that your number one guy, but
Or your second option, if you will,
I think we all are in agreement that they might not even have.
Doesn't matter.
They might not even have that. So if Amari Cooper on his last leg can come in and for a year or two, he is a nice complement to Travis Hunter, Tet McMillan, name another wide receiver here, then maybe that would work out. That's where I'm at with it.
Ryan in Toronto has a draft process question.
Yeah.
He wants to know why, for example, the Patriots are drafting with the 4th overall pick in the first round, and then when you get to the second round, it's 38.
Because it rotates.
When you tie.
Right. So why do they rotate?
Because they finish with the same record, so they rotate each round. So then they have the 5th overall pick in the second round, I think, and then they'll go back to having, whatever that is, those math. Tough.
Like the tiebreaker,
Yeah.
Comes into play for the first round, but then whoever loses the tiebreaker would get the pick ahead of that team.
Right, and then when we go to the third round,
It
it
goes
goes back to the first round order, and then so on and so
A little listener on listener crime.
Oh, I love that. crime.
Voodoo's writes in, please stop taking Eldred's calls.
Oh.
His takes are ridiculously bad, and it makes me want to turn off the podcast. Seriously, it's so bad. Never mind his trademark of pulling the horn every time. Every time I hear the horn, I immediately sigh and say, here we go.
I'm
Yeah. That's right, Eldred. You laugh.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with that. I'm
You
going to push
laugh.
back on that one.
I love Big E, especially with
I
DK
like
Metcalf
listener on
somehow
listener
is
crime, but
DK Metcalf somehow always in like the conversation somehow.
You know,
he's
that
been
just
involved in
crushed
every
yeah.
call
Every
since
DK Metcalf.
whatever 19.
19.
Is that the year he got drafted?
Yeah, he must have been crushed.
Oh, I know. This guy was available. They didn't even care.
He was right there for the taking.
Okay. Lots of. AJ from Lexington says, I can attest to the truth behind Alex's backwards hat data. I tried the backwards hat for the first time while out for dinner with the family. The results speak for themselves. Wink, wink. Ooh. Men don't ask questions.
Do tell.
Just try it.
There's a certain someone in our department that rocks the backwards hat whenever I am with him, and it's
Women like the backwards hat, I guess.
it's the only person I know that does it. So it's very proud.
Who'd have known?
No, like I said, I
don't
was
like it.
aware of that, and this goes back 30 plus years.
If you're over 22, I don't like it.
You know what Fred kind of
But
bugs me?
I was a kid.
Tennis guys with the backwards hat.
I don't like it either.
You know, they look like, hey, Sporto, what do you like?
Right.
That kind
And
of
it's
makes
always
sense
like
to
kind
me,
of
though.
back.
What do you
though,
think
it's
of the
like-
hat in general?
What?
The hat in general for tennis.
The hat in general? What does that mean?
The hat.
Like
Yeah.
if you had a
Guys,
forward
tennis players that wear the hats.
protect from the
Do you
sun.
like that
if,
or
you,
no?
if you're using it for sun, absolutely. I wear it sometimes. It's hot out there. Plus, I got the big ball spot.
That's why
So I don't
would
want to
wear it.
get.
That's why
sunburned.
I'm rarely outside
Yeah.
without a baseball.
Yeah,
hat
so
on.
I wear the hat sometimes when I play. But it was funny. I was watching Djokovic the other day, and they're playing at Indian Wells, and the way the sun is there at a certain time, it's really bad. So he had his hat on, but he had the brim turned sideways. He looked
jeez.
like a hip hop guy out there because he was really upset about the sun. So he was trying to get the brim just right. But there's a lot of guys that play with the backward hat. And I don't like it because when you're serving and your head goes back, the brim touches.
Right.
That bothers me.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. But then again, if you do want like the sweat absorption, some people don't like the look of the sweatband.
Yeah.
It looks too 70s.
Yeah.
So what do? So then you have to go to the handkerchief, the bandana.
Oh,
and
don't
they
do
don't
the
like
ban-
that either.
Don't do the bandana.
So then they wear
Zach
the
Wilson.
backwards hat.
Just do like the wristbands, and you just
Yeah.
wipe it off.
So there's a lot to it.
Here it is. I mean, we could be here all day.
Yeah. As you can tell, I'm into tennis.
All right, Agassi.
Let's go to the hotline. We'll go to Joe in Maine. What's up, Joe?
Pick a side.
Hey guys, first time calling in.
Thank you.
I like the show, doing a great job. I listen often. So my thing is, I like what they did yesterday. I understand what they did, what they got done, and then even what they couldn't do with Godwin, DK Metcalf. I understand all that, and I do think they're in a hard spot of getting offensive players to come here. But on the other hand, right now, like obviously that's like the glaring need for the team, right? Like that offensive line needs help. Left tackle. I mean, that's the big one. I think even before wide receiver, but the wide receiver room too needs some major help. I'm tired of having a bunch of like 3 and 4 guys, and I think as a fan, like we all want to see some explosiveness on the offense, especially this day and age in the NFL, the way everything's going. So I am excited with all the changes, Vrabel, all this that's happening. I do like their picks, or their signings yesterday. But like in the draft, this is my question. With everything how it stands now, don't they have to use that first, at least the first 2 picks, they're going to have to use it on offensive line, right, on that left tackle? So I guess I'm just, what do you guys think on that?
I think
trying to get that
I
left
think if
tackle
not
in the
Will
draft.
Campbell, you
Don't
got to
get it
take
by
a guy in
one.
the second round.
Yeah, I guess like
I
like
think
what?
you got to pick the best players.
Yeah, I know.
But I just don't. I guess I'm not saying that the caller is saying that it's a problem, but like people, I feel like people are acting like it's a problem. But like they have a bunch of draft capital that they can use on offense. So like what they did on defense yesterday, to me, I feel like they're pretty good on defense at this point. Like I agree with Deuce said earlier, they could probably use one more edge rusher, especially a situational guy that can rush the passer. But I don't see a whole lot of big holes on defense at this point.
No, and if one of Deuce's guys from Georgia is the best player, I think they should take him. at 4. You know, like I agree with you. Like, yes, they need offensive linemen. Again, they do not have to get every single hole addressed in year 1.
Right.
Or day 1. Like they'll get the offensive linemen.
Get good players.
Yeah.
If you add good players to your roster, you will improve. And then you can see the next time around, okay, we were able to go from 4 wins to 8 wins. How do we get from 8 to 12? Okay, we need a left tackle.
Yep.
We got to go out and, at all costs. We got to find a left tackle.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate the call.
They will get the offensive linemen.
Yeah.
Will they develop them and will they turn into good players? Like that's the second part. But
All
there
I
will
can tell
be
you
new
is
offensive linemen.
All, and this is not a shot at you. It's going to sound like one. All of you ball knowers,
Yeah, that's us.
tell me that there is an absolute dearth of offensive linemen in this league. Yet there's a lot of really good teams in the league. Am I to understand that the only ones that are any good have great offensive linemen? Or maybe are there some good teams in the league that do it without offensive linemen? Yes, Philly does it with dominant offensive line, right? Kansas City doesn't.
They do it with
Detroit.
the second best quarterback of all time.
No. This is what I'm saying is like you think you have a really good quarterback. So
not Patrick Mahomes.
No, I understand that, but why not bolster your defense, get really good on that side of the ball, get better, and then figure out how to get the offensive line better. Like, I'm not saying ignore the offensive line forever.
No.
But if Cam Robinson is your best option, how much better is he than Verdarian Lowe?
Right.
He's probably better. He's a starting caliber left tackle, and I'm not sure Verdarian Lowe is. Last year, their numbers were scarily similar. So if they don't love Cam Robinson, I get that. I get it. Maybe you have to bite the bullet and go with a year with Verdarian Lowe as your left tackle, or hope Caden Wallace can play left tackle. I don't think he can, but you might have to have a hole on your roster in year 1.
But I don't understand why. Like and I'm not saying that it's going to be an exact like this is a solution, no problems asked. But like if they don't go offensive line at 4 overall because they like one of the defensive players at the top of the draft, there's Josh Connerly, there's Ariante Ursery, there's Josh Simmons. Like there's other guys that play left tackle.
And I would be all for drafting one of those guys.
Right.
I would be 100% in on one of those guys. I'm just not going to say I'm going to draft one of those guys, and now I fixed my problem at left tackle.
That's not what I'm saying, but
No,
at least that's
all.
better than putting Verdarian Lowe back out there or flipping Caden Wallace.
I'm not convinced of that.
Oh, I am.
I'm not convinced
or flipping Caden Wallace.
If it works,
left to
if you
right.
draft a guy who can play and he works out, then you've improved over Verdarian Lowe. Just like if Carlton Davis ends up playing better than Jonathan Jones, you've improved that second cornerback spot.
Yeah. Listen.
Right?
I find it hard to believe that if they draft one of the top tackles in this upcoming class, that player is going to be worse than Verdarian Lowe.
I would agree.
Who was
I would agree
probably
with
the
that.
worst starting offensive lineman in football last year.
I listen.
Well, only topped by the guy on the right side.
Yeah, I don't even count him.
Talent was a problem on the offensive line. It's been a problem on the offensive line for this team. But development is also as big a problem on this team. And we've had this discussion. I am thoroughly convinced that if you have 5 good players, you can have a really good NFL offensive line, provided they have the right type of guidance, right type of coaching. You don't need, Orlando Brown necessarily if you have 5 guys who know how to play their positions, are working as one unit, and you have a good coach coaching
Right.
them.
But Evan's
you don't
point
have to
is-
have the elite players
But Evan's
to be
point
good
is
in the
they don't
NFL.
have that.
What?
They don't have 5.
They don't
good
have that,
guys.
but they're not
like last year. They had 1.
But I don't think it's that crazy. Like, it's not a Herculean task to get 5 adequate guys to play offensive line in the NFL.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, and I think that they'll be able to do that in the
Yes.
top 100 of this draft.
I'd say with the offensive line leadership they had in the last few years, if they had 5 good guys, they wouldn't look as good as they should. Maybe now they will. You know?
And just to close the book on that talk, I would not be opposed to doing what you said. Like the second pick has got to be, the Oregon guy, the Ohio State, one of those. I'm just saying, if I'm taking the 3rd or 4th tackle, I'm not necessarily just saying my problems are solved, but I would absolutely do it. I think they need to address it.
I just think I would much rather, even if it's ends up failing.
Yep.
I would much rather throw Josh Connerly out there on the hopes that we found
Me too.
the left tackle.
Me too.
Than have Verdarian Lowe play another season at that spot. And
I would be 1,000%
But
in agreement.
But all that said, listening to you guys, and I totally hear what you're saying, Paul. Do you still think there's a chance that Vidarian Lowe is the starter as we open OTAs?
I'm very worried about that fact.
I think
that's why I said I would do what Evan said.
0% chance.
Yeah, 0.
I think there's two things I feel pretty confident about. One, they're not doing this left, right, left nonsense anymore. Like you're either a right tackle or you're a left tackle. And I think Morgan Moses is
He's a right tackle.
That's a right tackle that they're going to play at right tackle. I don't think Vrabel is going to mess around with well, we're going to take this right tackle and we're actually going to flip him over to the left side. Now, I don't think we're doing that anymore, and I don't think Vidarian Lowe will be your starting left tackle. But now, it might be a rookie. It might be Will Campbell. It might be Ariante Ursary. It might be Josh Connerly. It might be whoever, but I don't think it will be Vidarian Lowe.
I don't think it's a 0. I don't think it's 0. I mean, I wish I could say that. But
Let's
you
put it
named the
this
guys.
way.
I don't know who the other guys even are.
I don't think it's 0 that someone that's on the team already is the starting left tackle.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's not Lowe, maybe it's someone else that they like. Maybe they like someone's development. Maybe Jacobs. Who knows?
But here's the thing.
But I'm scared of that, and I want Evans' option over any of those options.
I agree.
A second round / trade back up into the bottom of the first round.
Yeah.
Rookie is my better option at left
Throw
tackle.
him in there, see
than
how it
anything
goes.
they have.
And
I
it
agree
feels
with
like
Evan.
they've given themselves the flexibility by filling these holes on defense and free agency to maybe trade up from 38 back into the back half of the first round because they don't need that extra pick as badly anymore to hit all the needs that they have.
I mean, it's not as dire as people think it is right now on the offensive line. So let's just say Moses comes in.
I think it very much is.
Well, let's just say Moses comes in. At least for this year, he's your right tackle. Onwenu's your right guard, right? I don't know what the deal is with Andrews, if he's coming back or not. But if he does, he's your center. If not, maybe Stephen Neal's your center, right? I think he probably can. No.
Cole Strange?
I mean, what did I say? Stephen Neal. You
Yeah,
speak.
you have
French.
3 holes.
So
you
Cole
have
Strange.
3 holes on the offensive line.
No. So Cole Strange is your center. So you have 2 holes.
No, you have 3.
No, you have 3. Cole Strange is not.
Cole Strange played last year. Like, he's not an answer.
No, but what?
He's a possibility.
Right. But what? Like, he might be the answer at center if Andrews
he
doesn't
might
come
be.
in.
He might be, but he's a question mark.
Yeah.
And you have a question mark at left guard, and you have a question mark at left tackle.
So you're 3/5.
So you've answered 1 question mark, right tackle.
2. Well, Onwenu was your.
Onwenu was there last year.
Okay, what
you
I'm
had
saying,
1 lineman
what I'm
last
saying,
year. Now you have 2.
We need 5 guys. We've got 2. Sure things. We've got 2 sure things.
I would agree.
Right.
That's dire.
That's 40%.
I think
That's dire.
I think Cole Strange can be a center.
We did this last year, and you made fun of me just in this very spot last year.
Yeah.
And I didn't throw it in your face all year, but I will if you want me to.
Okay.
They couldn't block because you can't just put anyone out there and have them do it.
But I also don't think the coaching was that good. But I think we'll figure out left guard.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure out left
What's
guard.
that mean?
This is what they did last year.
No, but
someone will play.
But they didn't have the person to help figure it out. Okay,
Fred, you can't just figure it out with anybody.
We'll find a left tackle either in the draft or through free agency, or they're going to address that better than they addressed it last year.
My confidence is that they will address it. Last year they chose not to address it. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
They will address it.
Yeah.
That's why Evan says 0% for Vidarian Lowe.
They'll have a left tackle on the roster that they drafted highly. I feel very confident
Here's my
about
prediction.
that.
But that's a big difference between what they have right now.
Here's my prediction, okay? By week 7, we will not be talking about we will be satisfied with the offensive line. We'll be like, okay, it's good enough. We can win games with this line.
So you're projecting that they're going to add 3 guys that aren't on the team right now then?
I'm just saying that the play of the offensive line will be convinced that it's fine.
I just think you're doing exactly what you did last year.
Okay.
If you're just going to close your eyes and say it's going to be like Elliot Wolf told us in
they're going to have
August,
to make moves.
I'm not worried about it.
I'm not just saying they're going to have Vidarian Lowe at left tackle. They're going to have to make moves, but I'm confident they know what a good offensive lineman looks like, and they're going to coach him right.
I would feel a lot better if in the next couple days, Tevin Jenkins, Mekhi Becton, someone like that is signed to play left guard. Because if they have,
I would take Mekhi Becton to play left tackle.
I wouldn't do that. But
I would.
But if he comes in, or maybe it's Mekhi Becton as left guard, ideally left tackle if need be, and they draft a left tackle they like, and then maybe he kicks inside. But if they add one more lineman that is a starting caliber NFL offensive lineman, just like Morgan Moses, If they had one more of those guys, then I think that we're
If that
okay.
happens, I'm with you, Fred.
Okay. And I'm confident that they will.
If you have answers at 3 or 4 spots, you don't need all 5. If you have answers at 3 or 4, then I don't think we'll be talking about it incessantly.
And they're
all
playing
year.
with continuity and cohesion and communication.
The 3 C's.
You can make it work.
Please, Doug Marone.
I know you can make it work.
Yeah.
That's what they've told me for 3 years, and they haven't made it work.
I know. I'm just saying.
And it's not just coaching.
Well, that's a big part of it.
Coaching's the 4th one.
Yeah, it's a big
Fourth-
part
the
of
fourth
it.
C.
Right.
Like you can't just make
Consistency.
DeMontre Jacobs and
Consistency.
Verdarian Lowe starting tackles.
Yeah.
If they're not starting
Camaraderie.
caliber,
Yeah.
It's actually 10 C's.
Well,
I
it
think.
just what I know we're running out of time, but like what bugs me
Colossally
about
stupid.
the offensive line is like Cole Strange and Layden Robinson get thrown. Like, they'll start at left guard.
this is my point.
Based off of what? Like, what have they
like
done?
you can't just take guys and just say, "Well, they're my starters; they'll be fine."
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. Like it's not. I said this 9,000 times last year. Every time we had to do the bad list, I felt bad about putting DeMontre Jacobs on. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. He's trying to block like Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
Like that's not fair.
Yeah. It's good you told him that. You had that moment with the two of you where he broke down a little bit.
It's not your fault, son.
Yeah, it's right. It's not.
I just remember growing
Not
up,
you too, Sean.
watching football on TV, and you'd be watching. Back then, it was the Giants every week, but whoever the teams were, there were a lot of NFC teams, and guys would go down the offensive line, and you're watching. And say, I wonder if that's going to affect the play. And because they had a good system and good coaching, the other guy would come in, and there'd be no problem.
That and the fact that they ran the ball every play. So
No.
they didn't have guys screaming off the edge on the blind side.
Luke writes in, I'm not a huge Colorado football fan, so there may just be something I'm not seeing, but could someone please explain the Travis Hunter hype to me? Not at all saying he's a bad player by any stretch, but aside from the athletic wow factor, which in my opinion probably won't carry into the NFL, as he'll primarily be playing on one side of the ball, not both, there are better wide receivers in Ted McMillan and Luther Burden, and better quarterbacks in Will Johnson or even Ben Morrison available that could do more on one side of the ball than Hunter could, unless a team really plans to give him significant snaps on both sides of the ball, which seemed very far-fetched to me. Second question, does that seem far-fetched to you all? Huge thanks for the Unfiltered crew. You all make the commute go by in a flash. So, do you agree that you don't see the wow in Travis Hunter?
I see the wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to respond to emails like that because I don't want to come off as
Yeah,
disrespectful.
I think he's got that elite athleticism. He
Elite
just
ball
makes it
skills.
look easy.
Yeah, I understand what his point is about not being sure how it translates because he's right. Like in college, there are guys that just have a level of athleticism that exceeds anything they're playing against or with. I think he has a special skill set.
He does.
He does.
That you don't see every year.
Explosive.
We'll do 2 more calls. We're going to have to make them quick because we're up against it. Deshaun's in Virginia. What's up, Deshaun?
Hello, guys. How you guys doing?
Good.
Basically, what I want to say is, like, I actually like the free agency that the Patriots have had so far because, like I said, it allows them to pivot to much more need, especially on the offensive side of the ball because they don't have to address the defense side of the ball like that. With that being said, so when people criticize about what he done in free agency, I don't understand why because if I'm doing this draft, like if I would try to double dip on wide receiver, possibly take a tackle in the first round, probably depends on how things go. But I don't understand how people actually want to criticize this job.
Well, that's just Paul shows.
Yeah.
I haven't heard a lot of criticism. People are just wondering where can they find improvement on offense.
Yeah.
But I think people like what they've done on defense.
Well, until they signed Milton, your show was ready to just go right after them.
But I think it's unfortunate for like this job because like there's not a whole lot of options. I mean, as far as trying to get the receiver they want because you either can try to do it through trade, which some of the receivers don't want to come here, or you can try to draft one. But it seems like the past couple of drafts, there hasn't been any great receivers.
Yep.
That you can plug in.
Yep. I know.
I mean, the only receiver
That's all
that really
I'm saying.
hit.
All right, thanks, Deshaun.
Hit free agency was Godwin, and I don't even think he really hit free agency. That
He didn't.
Right. It seems like that.
Free agency hasn't started yet, technically.
Well, I just mean he.
Yeah,
didn't-
no, but you're right.
He didn't really.
Yeah.
He didn't really want to leave. I think
I
they could
agree
have
with
made
that. As much as I
could have made the Metcalf
I disagree with the whole $20 million. I don't think he ever wanted to leave Tampa. They said that at the Combine.
Yeah.
Kendall's in North Carolina. Hey, Kendall.
Hey, I know Paul mentioned earlier that we should be rooting for the for the Steelers to get Rodgers. But if the Giants get Russell Wilson, would that change your mind, Paul? Like, do you think?
Oh, that would be bad too. Yeah, that would be bad. If the Giants get a veteran quarterback, that would be bad. Any veteran quarterback.
They kind of have to, though, right?
I think they do. But they're running out. I mean,
Does Joe
he's
Milton
right.
count as a veteran?
It's Russell Wilson. It's Kirk Cousins could potentially be available, and it's Aaron Rodgers, right? Who else? Am I missing one?
No, that's it.
No, Fields is gone.
Yeah.
So one of those three, if the Giants were able to sign, I think that would eliminate them drafting Shedeur Sanders. That would be bad.
So if the Giants you're saying if the Giants get Russell Wilson, that'd be bad.
I think so. I mean, Fred thinks that they still might take a quarterback. I don't see
you
why
don't have to start him on day one.
I don't see why you would waste your
issue-
resources if you're that desperate to save your job. Now you're drafting a guy in the first round who could potentially help you win games, and now you're drafting a backup quarterback in the first round who's not going to help you win
Right.
games. I don't think that makes sense
You also
for a
have to
desperate
factor
regime.
in that Shedeur Sanders is 24, 25 years old already because he's been in college for 5 years. So, like, he's as ready as
Thanks,
he's
Kendall.
going to be coming out of college. You know, like, Cam Ward's, like, maybe a little bit more of the raw upside play. But in terms of Shedeur, I don't know how much more pro-ready you're really
Well, they
gonna
both
get.
played a lot of college football, though.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Patriots Unfiltered. We'll be back on Thursday. We'll see what happens between now and then. Who knows? Catch 22 tomorrow.
Tomorrow at noon.
At noon. All right. The boys will be here, and you'll be talking about everything that we talked about.
Yeah, just probably be the
But
same.
with
show.
Barth, it's a whole different take.
Probably be more X's and O's.
Yeah.
It's an
All right.
outside
We'll
perspective.
see you Thursday.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.
The world's original